Alright, hello meow meows. Lovely to see you all. But you can't see me yet. Hold on a second. There we go. Hi, nice to see you all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi Hero, hi Nell, hi Happy. Hello everyone, nice to see you. Oh my goodness, alright, you too buddy. Hi, welcome. Wholesome Foxcat, very wholesome. Just look how wholesome I look right now. So, yeah, well, last month we hit our sub goal, and I said, I gave you a choice, so before you complain that this might be boring, which is my fear, but who knows, today we're going to be doing a history class for you. So, I hope you're all doing very well. I've got a little seat for you, like you can sit on the desk if you direly want. Hi. So, this is going to be a bit experimental, obviously. I've never done a stream like this before, but it should be quite fun. I'm looking forward to it. Essentially, we're just going to hang out like we usually do during our normal kind of hangout streams, but of course, the topic will be on history. Fun fact, did you know that was the best I could muster for handwriting? Like, it's terrible even outside of VR. So I don't think I'll be writing very much on the board, but it's there. Foxcat, hi Demi, hey Waffle, hey Undead, how are you all doing? Welcome. Hold on, I can bring you in a bit close while we do our intro. Hi. Do you like the glasses? I like the glasses, they're cute. Calmly here to judge the facts. Hell yeah, Tifa. To be fair, this is all going to be like, it's not going to be super advanced. It's going to be basically the stuff that you teach at GCSE and then some extra stuff on top of it. But you know, not everyone here, but most people here aren't actually from England, so I'm going to teach them some English history, plus other stuff. I think the topics I had in mind, what did I write down? Got some basic notes, but it's mostly going to be me yapping, teehee. Oh yeah, so I've got a lot of tangents. I've planned my tangents in advance. But the general topics we're going to be following are, so especially English one, which is the Norman conquest of England, which I think is very interesting and something I know quite a lot about. We're also going to do what brought about World War I, so the build-up in the early 1900s and before that, basically from the Treaty of Vienna onwards up until the start of World War I, and what caused it all, because a lot of people have a very basic understanding of the start of it, and you know, it was Archduke Franz Ferdinand, he got assassinated and everything fucking exploded. Obviously there was a lot that built up before that, so we're going to discuss that a little bit. Green eyes, meow. Also, thank you, Subtle, for the Prime sub. Nice to see you, darling. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're also going to cover in basic, somewhat basic, we're going to go over the Vikings a little bit, and I want to do not World War II inherently, because World War II is done to death, but I do want to do the end of World War II and the Cold War a little bit, because that's fun, and I think that's a nice one for discussion too, because, you know, I want you guys to be involved as well. I want to spend some time with you. So, don't worry. Hello, Nariko. Hey, sweetie pie. Nice to see you. And if we go over a bit, if we run out of topics to talk about, I also have a little bit on the War of the Roses, which is another English war, bit of English history for those who aren't familiar with it. Bit more obscure than a lot of people know about. So, yeah, some fun topics. I think they'll be nice. I went over them the other day with Will, and he said they're pretty fun. So, you guys will be the judge of that. But, yeah, Austria mentioned, Meow Point. Yes, we'll be going over Austria and all that sort of stuff, especially with the World War I one. Because I personally, I'm most excited to talk about World War I and its build-up, because it's something, for a lot of people, and their kind of understanding of, like, modern history, it kind of starts at World War I for a lot of people. So I think going over a little bit before that and what kind of brought about all these kind of modern changes into the industrial period and all that sort of stuff is, it's nice. We might actually go over some naval battles, because I'm quite familiar with those, but I don't want to talk too in depth about war and stuff like that. Not that we won't, you know, war drives a lot of change in history, but I also want to talk about cultural things, particularly regarding the Norman conquest and how it affected England and made it what it is today, etc., etc. So, yeah. Yep. Built up explosions. What, do you guys want a test? I didn't plan to do a test, but I might test you. As a bit of fun. Nice to see you, Red. Hey, darling. Sorry, I wasn't checking chat for a moment there because I was... Also, the outfit's cute. Don't you love the outfit? I love the outfit. I think it's really, really nice. Not too lewd, but also kind of hot. Also, I don't know about the music. I put on the fucking maidcore, but I don't know if it's like, it works. I don't know, what do you guys think? Should we stick with this music or change something else? Also, thank you everyone for the subs. Much appreciated. What do you mean? Yeah. I don't think we'll talk... I'm trying to not talk about too... There are sensitive topics in every period of history, but we'll try to avoid them as best we can. Obviously, it's nigh impossible when talking about this sort of stuff, but we'll see. Anyway, not going to be talking much from here, paying some attention. Thank you, Hazel. Nice to see you, my darling. Ow. Hi, SB. Welcome, darling. Welcome. Upbeat Meowcore would go hard. What's Meowcore? Just my favourites playlist. Slightly lower volume. Yeah, I thought this was quite loud, but it's like could turn it down even more, or we could just put on my stupid playlist of just everything I enjoy. I don't know. Hello, Mrs. Meow. Hello, Aspects. Hey, sweetie pie. I don't know what the link ms.meow is, but don't click it. Slightly lower volume, well, so it seems okay. Meow. I mean, what we could also do, we've got like actual peaceful music, like what I usually use for my like stream intros. You know, we've got to sort the logistics first, and I'm very indecisive about music. Miss, I know it's Miss. Don't you worry, darling. Don't you worry. Alright, we'll leave this on as background music enough. Slightly quiet. But I don't want it to be awkwardly not Mrs. Why not? Huh? Why aren't you married? In fact, I should be Mrs. I'm married to my chat. We've established this. If you're following, then we're married. Anyway, what do you think of my excellent handwriting, by the way? Isn't it brilliant? Outstanding. Alright, meow. Shall we get started then? Lovely little class. Do you have a preference for what we should start on, or shall we just start with the Normans as I planned? Does anyone have any topics that want to be discussed that aren't on our little list that would be interesting to you? Because obviously, I probably should have consulted you in a poll beforehand, but it's fine. What do you mean a pee-pee? That is a cat. Excuse me. What the fuck? Oh, Rome. Yeah, I thought about Rome, and then I realised that comparatively, I don't know very much about Rome. I know some basic stuff. Crusades could be interesting. Could talk a bit about that when discussing the medieval period. It's not a pee-pee, it's a cat. Your pee-pee looks like that. Okay, let's do a bit of anatomy too. We can teach you multiple things. So, first of all, alright, I get it, right? You know, that it could be. But if that is happening at the top, that's not meant to happen. You should consult a doctor, because that seems ripe for infection. So like, you know, and UTIs, you don't want to mess around with those. So if it looks like that, please talk to a doctor. Otherwise, it should be fine. There you go. See, you're already learning. Vikings. We are going to be talking about Vikings today. So there you go. You're lucky on that. But that's later down the agenda. We'll get on to that. We'll start with we will have a little bit of Viking stuff at the beginning, because one of the players in 1066 that is going to be part of our talk on the Norman conquest is Harold Hardrada, who many would consider to be kind of an end of the Viking age, what you'd consider Vikings. You know, he himself is a bit of a character. He was part of the Varangian Guard. He initially was ousted from his country and had to then go and fight a war to get the crown back from the usurper, who I believe was his brother. I don't remember too much about that part. But either way, yes. So a lot of interesting stuff about Hardrada, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. Your school's abbreviation is a UTI. That is terrible. What the fuck? Oh yeah, I went to a college called STD. Did they not think of a slightly better name? Vlad the Impaler. I don't know much about Vlad the Impaler, I'm sorry to say. I know a little bit about... I think the closest I could get to that is I know a little bit about the fall of Constantinople. But yeah, that's about it. I'm sticking to topics that I'm pretty familiar on. Again, I'm not, a genius, right? I just want to talk about things that I find interesting, that I know a decent bit about. Schools don't think most of the time. I don't think most of the time, to be fair. Extracurricular sessions, if you behave yourself, maybe I'll let you stay after class with me. But you gotta get our test right later. Anyway, meows. I think we're putting off getting started a bit too much. As much as I love talking to you. What was more effective, European siege or the Chinese siege? I mean, depends what you mean. What, like siege tactics or being sieged? And what period, I guess. I know, you're already asking me questions. I want to start on Normans. See, I'm going to get flashbanged by so many people asking questions and then going on a complete fucking tangent. But anyway. Meow. Let's talk about the Normans a bit. So, I don't know. How many of you actually know... Because we don't have many English people here. Who knows what happened in 1066? Don't answer, Tipper. Like, for the non-English people, I imagine most English people know what happened in 1066 in England. Does anyone who outside of England actually know, or should we start with the absolute basics? Because, yeah. I don't know how much I need to elaborate on certain things. I think I should assume that you don't know things, but it's nice to ask you a few questions. Don't even know what happened yesterday. Poor sod. Yeah, it's pretty common in England to know this because it's quite an important event in British history. But in 1066, obviously, as we're talking about it, it was the Norman conquest and, quite famously, the Battle of Hastings. But what a lot of people may not know is that there were quite a lot of battles in 1066, and indeed, it wasn't just the Normans that were trying to invade. By coincidence, England was invaded twice in the same year. In fact, in the same 1 month period, actually. I think it was around 1 month. Yeah, it would have been. The Queen's birth. No, not quite. Learning year 7 history of the Normans. Yeah, well, I mean... if people don't know things, people don't know things. So we are going to start really simple. Don't you... Tipper, this class may not be for you. I'm sorry to say, darling. But I thought it would be cute. So, yes, we had the Battle of Hastings in 1066. That was the battle in which the King of England at the time, or at least had established himself as the King of England, Harold Godwinson, lost to William the Conqueror, as he was then called William the Bastard, and William took over England. And that was the last time that there was a proper, successful invasion of English soil, depending on what your definition would be. But typically that's regardless. Last time England was successfully invaded was in 1066. So, a bit of background information for you. I think we'll start. There are three major claimants. There were more claimants, but three major claimants to the English throne. Because previously... just before all these events, the previous king, who was rather popular, Edward the Confessor, had died. And annoyingly, he did not have an immediate heir. So, this is what brought about the events in 1066. There was no heir, and a lot of claimants. We had Harold Godwinson, who initially is the one who takes the throne, William the Conqueror, who eventually takes the throne, and Harold Hardrada, who... failed miserably to take the throne. But yes, Harold Hardrada was the current king of Norway. William the Bastard, as he was called, because he was a bastard, was the Duke of Normandy at the time, and Harold Godwinson was indeed the King of England. The claims that they had, William of Normandy's one is rather, dubious, I suppose. His claim was that once upon a time, Edward the Confessor got shipwrecked on Norman soil, and in return for, I suppose, the hospitality or kindness of William, he was promised the English throne. It's disputable whether that actually happened, but that is what is said to have happened. So, what was Hardrada? Tipper, maybe you can help me. What was Hardrada's claim on the throne? Did he actually have a proper claim? I can't remember what his claim was. By the way, so what you'll notice when I'm teaching this is I don't know things sometimes, and you'll have to remind me. Because I am actually just going to be talking off the top of my head largely. And it's good to make sure that I actually know what I'm talking about first and foremost. Not that it's too important, but Hardrada also had a claim on the throne as well. So, in 1066, what happened was that Hardrada was actually the first to act. In the north of England, he and Harold Godwinson's brother, Tostig, invaded England with a rather large army consisting of the Norwegian and Danish mercenaries. North Sea Empire Restoration was his claim, really. Yeah, he didn't have a very strong claim. But, yes. So, I suppose the closest thing to his claim would be, England had quite a lot of Viking roots for a few hundred years ago. But, yeah. So, yeah, he invaded North England, and initially, the Battle of Fulford Gate, it was decidedly in his favour, and he managed to get a bit of a foothold on the northern British soil. Now, reacting to that, Harold Godwinson he was not expecting this. Well, he might have been slightly expecting it, but he wasn't expecting an invasion all the way up north, and indeed he had not prepared any sort of army or mustered any sort of forces. So, Harold Godwinson had to take his army from the capital all the way up to the north of England, and as he did that, he had to rally forces, etc., etc. And it gave Hardrada a decent amount of time to establish himself. Sorry, I'm tired. It's fine, Will. Don't you worry. He had to, Now, typically, this would end up in quite a bloody battle had things not gone completely differently, because Hardrada actually got surprised by Godwinson. He was significantly faster in mustering an army and actually heading north. Hardrada thought that he would have more time to prepare. And indeed, the British, there wasn't really a British army, but Godwinson's army, as it headed up north, managed to catch Hardrada by surprise. And that leads us to the Battle of Stamford Bridge, which, well, I can tell you it as it happened. So, Harold Hardrada's army was completely unprepared for this attack. They had basically split into two separate groups. One group had gone ahead, set up a camp, made a slight defensive position outside of, next to this bridge, Stamford Bridge, and they were completely unarmoured. They did not have much gear with them at all. The other part of the army, which was with Tostig, was down the river, quite a way away, and they were going to be bringing the gear up later on. Again, they weren't expecting an attack so soon. The only kind of armed forces that they had that were, properly geared out were two groups of scouts that were keeping watch over the bridge. Not many people at all. So, when the attack over the bridge did happen, there's a popular myth that happens, and it comes from these, scouts that were actually decently well-armoured. There's a famous story that is not quite true, but quite a fun one to tell. So I'll tell you the story as it is that during the initial attack, there was a small group, or just one soldier, that held at the bridge and stopped the Saxons from advancing. And, famously, apparently, he killed a good number of enemy soldiers, and people were too scared to engage him. And the only time that they were able to actually finally advance was when a boat sailed, not a boat, soldiers got under the bridge, got a spear, and stabbed him from below with a spear in the nuts. This probably didn't happen, but it is a funny story. What did happen that we know was that there were scouts / lookouts, I suppose, holding the bridge, and they did in fact manage to hold the bridge for a small period of time. So, while there may not have been a great warrior who died being stabbed in the nuts, there was indeed quite a valiant effort to protect the main army. Indeed, it gave them a bit of time to actually form up a defensive line and actually protect themselves from the coming battle, and it gave Hardrada a bit more of a chance at defending himself, rather than being taken completely by surprise. Indeed, however, he still didn't have any armor, and if you look at famous depictions of the battle, you'll see that the Hardrada's army is depicted as typically wearing absolutely no armor at all, compared to their quite heavily armed Saxons. And indeed, while he managed to form a line and, defend himself to a certain extent, it was perhaps less of a decisive victory as it could have been for the Saxons, but it was still quite a decisive victory. Eventually, Tostig's armoured troops actually geared up, managed to come to reinforce, but by then the battle was already lost. There was really no chance for them. Both Tostig and Hardrada were killed at that battle. But it did not come without its consequences, because when this battle happened, because they were able to put up an acceptable fight, this led to Godwinson. They're both called Harold. It's quite annoying. It confuses me too. Godwinson's the English one, Hardrada's the Norwegian one. Godwinson lost quite a few significant troops. There weren't standing armies during the medieval period, not typically. There were some. The HRE was kind of the first to start implementing standing armies, but in England, standing armies weren't really a thing at this period. But they did have housecarls, which were the noblemen at the time. They would be in charge of mustering the local area, and indeed they would be heavily armoured, as knights would be in the future. They would have decent combat training, they would have armour, they knew how to protect themselves, and they formed quite a hardy backbone to Godwinson's military force. So, as a result of that, losing those precious housecarls, when word came of William the Conqueror, William the Bastard as he was called, coming from down south, well, Godwinson had just lost a significant portion of this army that he's just raised, especially these housecarls, and as a result, he now needed to march down south, and as he went, also muster armies to replenish his diminished force. So, he started heading down south. William the Conqueror managed to get a foothold, a beachhead. Easy peasy. There weren't any forces there to repel him, really. And when Godwinson finally met William the Conqueror at Hastings, his army was a shadow of its former self compared to at Stamford Bridge. And you'll see why this is significant, how this led to the loss. Sorry, spoiler alert, the loss at the Battle of Hastings and the victory for William. So, William had recruited a quite competent army to invade England. A large amount of Breton, that's Warhammer. Breton, yeah, I guess Breton. From Brittany. Breton's the word, right? I'm getting caught up on nothing. Breton cavalry, and some pretty heavily armoured... I just took a photo. Pretty heavily armoured soldiers. He had a strong force, and this cavalry will be quite important later on, compared to this hastily recruited army. Now, Godwinson managed to actually secure a very advantageous position at the Battle of Hastings. He was positioned atop a hill. Now, for those who know, basics of tactics, being on top of a hill is really helpful, because if you want to charge at someone, it is easier to run downhill than uphill. So if you have to charge uphill, you're not only being able to, with your spears, as spears they would have had, be able to strike downwards, enemies have to fight upwards. It's a lot harder, and being up a hill is very advantageous. Typically, this would spell almost, for two similarly sized army, this would be an almost guaranteed victory unless someone pulls off something very clever. So, in the initial parts of the battle, so if I turn the audio up too much, Lego will kill me. It's fine, my darling. Oh yeah, we're talking about William. Yes. In fact, this is the guy. This is William Kohler. This is William the Conqueror reincarnated. But, yes. So typically, this would be advantageous for Godwinson. However, during the course of the battle, it started off well for him. He managed to repel a quite few number of these cavalry attacks from these Breton mercenaries. Battle raged for a long time. Battles in medieval periods go on for a good number of hours. The battle raged with very little changing. William wasn't able to get a foothold over the enemy soldiers. So, what eventually happened is a rumour started to spread that William the Conqueror had been killed. Now, there's a famous story that, indeed, when this rumour started to spread, people started to retreat, especially these mercenaries who thought, oh, we're not going to get paid now. Loyalty to the end. See you happy. But, as the story goes, William then ripped off his helmet and declared himself alive, and he's still here. It's dubious whether that actually happened, but it's a nice story. And with that, the cavalry rallied. Now, the untrained, as we know, Saxon soldiers who had just been recruited on Godwinson's march down south, they didn't know how to fight, and they being largely peasants, were like, the battle's won, they're retreating, we are going to break our formation atop the hill, and some of them ran down the hill to loot the fallen corpses. But as the cavalry retreated, and then rallied, they came back, they encircled these troops that had broken off from the main force, and slaughtered them. They got cut down, and that's where the battle took a turn for William's benefit. And indeed, in the future, as the battle continued, William would use that. And it still amuses me that this worked, but he would then fake 2 more retreats. This time, completely faked. He would pretend to retreat, and yet more of the soldiers holding the line would break from the main army, get encircled and slaughtered. And apparently, I don't know, but this is definitively what happened. But yes, kiting indeed. Yeah, they got absolutely scammed. And with that, the shield wall, shield wall that they had formed just fell apart. The right flank of the army was left completely exposed, and Godwinson's forces were overrun, and his army was destroyed. And indeed, Godwinson, most of the story comes from the Magna Carta, by the way. No, is it Magna Carta? Well, Bayeux Tapestry, that's the one. The Bayeux Tapestry. Magna Carta's the decree signed by... completely different thing, I'm just stupid. The Bayeux Tapestry, which depicts this story. But in the Bayeux Tapestry, it is depicted that Godwinson was killed with an arrow to the eye, and with his death, his army retreated, and the battle was won. And that was the Battle of Hastings. The Normans took control. King William marched to London just a few days later, took the crown, and declared himself King of England. So there you go, there's the Battle of Hastings, and that is the Norman conquest, and that's not where we're going to stop. It's where a lot of people stop, but I would like to continue and talk about the consequences of this, because that's the military part, and the military part's very interesting. I like it, it's an excellent story, very dramatic. Alexoromir being a loot goblin is historical role-playing. It actually is. Absolutely. Godwinson, more like Godlawson. Am I right? Absolutely. You are silly. So, you are cute. But the conquest had a lot of consequences for England. Indeed, this lineage was now monarchy, and it was for a very long time, and most monarchs... I'm trying to think, yeah. I don't think the line deviated too far down. I know there was the Lancastrians, but I still think they... Actually, no, they wouldn't have. But still, last time we ever got successfully invaded and usurped. Now, let me get a drink of water, because I've been yapping a lot. Shocking, I know. Me, yap, never. But we want to talk about what happened in the immediate and later aftermath. and how it affected the Anglo-Saxons, because the Anglo-Saxons were the majority people. The Angles and Saxons, the two Germanic tribes which conquered England a very long time ago, and they were the de facto, people of England. There was a lot of Viking heritage from the Danelaw before, which we'll talk about the Danelaw when we go on about the Vikings, and indeed about Hardrada. Because I want to talk about Hardrada, because from this story, it's very easy to look at Hardrada and think, what a fucking loser, he got fucking demolished. But he was a very talented general, very gutsy, very brave. He's a very interesting character, and I'd love to talk about him a lot more. Meowing her head off, I know. Wonder what the Welsh think of this. Oh, yes. Well, I'll go on about that. But yes. I mean, well, actually, let's go on about it now. So, Tipper is absolutely right. The Welsh were not happy about this at all. And if you ever visit England and you go to Wales, you will notice that there are a lot of castles in Wales. And that is as a result of William and his children building a lot of castles, because there was a lot of dissent in Wales. A lot of rebellions happened inside of Wales, and William essentially, and his forebears, built what is basically a big wall, not a big wall, but a wall of castles. There's a big strip of castles across the Welsh border that were built by William, and this purely was to quash any dissent that was coming from the Welsh lords, who were very unhappy with this. And the reason, there were a lot of Anglo-Saxon nobles who bent the knee, and they were able to keep some degree of their power from before. But William, during his conquest, started to instate a lot of Norman nobles into positions of power within England. And because of that, this led to a massive divide between Normans, who started to settle in England, and the Anglo-Saxons. And as a result, a lot of Anglo-Saxons were very unhappy. I've been bonked. Hello, Bold. And it's not just in the nobility that Anglo-Saxons were mistreated. Indeed, the Normans got extra privileges within England. A lot of this became the standard noble-peasant divide, because eventually the Normans were the nobility and the Anglo-Saxons were the peasantry. And that divide became standardized within England. And you'll see a lot of these rules that are established during this time continuing on into late medieval period. Hello, my darling. Kian Bian, thank you for the follow, my darlings. Lovely to have you here. You're late to class? You are. Now bend over, I'll spank you. I'm joking. But yes, some of these more famous things. Who has heard of Robin Hood? He's a bit later on, but the policy that's implemented by the nobles are one of the main things that his story is birthed from, eventually. Lakuro, thank you for the follow, darling. Welcome. Very cat. Robin Hood is a good fox. Yes, I think that's where most people know the story of Robin Hood from. You saw the movie? Yes, well, that is a very famous legend. To be honest, as far as legends go, somewhat verifiable likelihood that Robin Hood to a certain extent existed. He was probably just a bandit that may have been quite generous at the same time. So the entire story is not exactly true, but he could exist. You don't know. But anyway, that's quite far in the future compared to this. But a policy that was implemented that was part of this Anglo-Saxon discrimination that was implemented was that only Norman people and those of nobility could hunt in English soil. So a lot of these Anglo-Saxons whose livelihoods were based off of hunting, and their way of supplying food was based from hunting. Suddenly, they were criminals now. They weren't allowed to hunt on these Norman lands, as they were claimed. And that's where the story of Robin Hood kind of comes from, is the rise of poachers in the forests. And that's, Sherwood Forest was where Robin Hood was based out of, and that gave to a rise of a massive wave of banditry amongst Anglo-Saxon people, and it was all birthed off of these former huntsmen that now needed to become criminals to, survive. So, indeed, it affected people quite badly. They did, however, overhaul a lot of somewhat outdated policies that we had. One thing I like to bring up from is we studied crime and punishment in high school. One of my favourite examples of a change that Normans implemented was originally the Anglo-Saxons used something called trial by ordeal. If you were accused of a crime, it's quite terrible, but you were forced to undergo a very painful, basically torture. If you were convicted of something, usually it was holding a red-hot iron bar, and if the injury healed within, I think it was 2 weeks, then you were innocent because God has ordained it so. But if you were guilty and it didn't heal, you're guilty. It's absurd, it's crazy, but that's how the Anglo-Saxons had it. Now, the Normans replaced that with trial by combat, which wasn't much better, but it was a hell of a lot better than everything else. Indeed, this was also focused on giving nobles a bit of a better chance, because a nobleman could hire a champion to be their combatant in trial by combat. So not much better, but at least you had a fighting chance. Winner's innocent, exactly. And again, it's based off this idea that God would protect you from being injured, and the guilty one would be slain. Medieval stuff's crazy, but just like nowadays, exactly. But yes, abysmal dog shit, lovely, exactly. That's a lot of things in this. Interesting thing, I forgot to mention this when talking about descent. There was a lot of dissent because of this. William was a very talented ruler. Indeed, the reason we know so much about him is because he was very good... Oh, thank you. He was very good at keeping notes. Well, not notes. Keeping ledgers, that's the word. Keeping ledgers of things. And we have quite a famous document. One of the first things he did as king was he did it's called the Doomsday Book. Which is quite a dramatic name for a big ledger of everything in England. But we know an awful lot about this period because of the Doomsday Book. And he sent charters all across England to get the population, the housing, properties, etc., so that he knew what he was ruling over in England. Yeah, quite a dramatic name, but less dramatic. And this allowed him to tax England properly. So he was quite efficient in that regard. But a lot of people weren't very happy with him. And up north, let me just very quickly check that what I'm about to say is correct, because I didn't script talking about this part, but I did just remember it exists. Yes, it is right. Okay. So there was a lot of dissent, not just from Wales. Wales was controllable. William was able to keep a decent stranglehold over Wales. It was an important place to own. But during this period, the north of England was not very heavily populated and less important to William. But a lot of rebellion was coming from the north, specifically York. I don't know if it was still called Jorvik back then, but that was the old capital of the Danelaw. And it was very different from the south of England. There was quite a stark divide between previous Danelaw areas and the areas held by the Anglo-Saxons. But there was a lot of dissent coming from up north. So you want to know what William did? He decided that the best solution was to literally kill everyone. And in an event called the Harrying of the North, he went up north with an army and burnt down many towns, many villages, killed, I believe, 2/3 of the population, salted the lands, and even to this day, as a result of the Harrying of the North, the lands up north are significantly less fertile than the lands down south in England, because he salted all the land so that you could not grow crops there. And as a result, there is a massive famine up north. So yeah, there you go. He was a very efficient leader, but also quite a brutal one, shockingly. But yeah, that's an event that I never actually heard of before I was taught it. It's not very well documented, but yeah, like, he killed fucking a lot of people. Yeah, not quite the bubonic plague, I think that was even higher, but yes, because the north was pretty sparsely populated, but it was a good proportion of people. It was something else. Yeah, well, that escalated, exactly. It was quite the escalation, indeed. Some would say he's a real jerk. I think some would say that. He was called William the Bastard before he became William the Conqueror, so you know, it's kind of in the name. England knocked their crimes. It was against England. It's the same country. It was an internal genocide. It's just, it was a very long time ago, and it's not a period that's so often talked about, because this is early medieval. It's not kind of a transitionary period. Obviously 1066 is talking about quite a lot, but most people just know about the Battle of Hastings, and that's how the Normans came into power. Not many people know as much about what happened afterwards and the consequences of that, although I guess to a certain extent they do, with Robin Hood and what have you. But yeah, interesting. I like it. Is there anything I've forgotten to mention about these sorts of things? Oh yes, I suppose he did do some good, to a certain extent. He, as I said, he modernized the court slightly about how to do trials, but also he put in place, and his predecessor mostly, King John, later on, but he put in place, well, not immediate predecessor, but you know, a new method of judging, because previously, in England, crime was all over the place. Punishment was all over the place. And while this wasn't fully standardized under William, he did put in the procedures with court judges, court justices, as they were called, where there was now an official court of the king. John would later send these all around the country, but in an attempt to actually standardize the law, because if you committed a crime in one part of England, the punishment could be vastly different compared to a completely different part of England. You could get off relatively nicely, or you could be put in a bathtub and have a stone lowered on you with your limbs hanging out of said tub, and you are slowly crushed to death under a heavy boulder. Or you could just be beheaded. You know, there's a great deal of variety of how you could be punished during the Anglo-Saxon period. I want the second one. Okay, buddy. Alright. So yes, there was a decent bit of variety there. So that was part of William's effort to kind of standardise this stuff. He did bring in quite a lot of reforms. And indeed, a lot of those stuck around during the medieval period, and while a lot of them seem rather barbarous today, especially the trial by combat, they were a marked improvement over a lot of things. And eventually those outdated practices would be reformed into newer ones. Such are the stepping stones of, I guess, progress throughout the years. But, yes. Which would you rather have, chat? Would you rather have the trial by ordeal or trial by combat? Genuine question. I'm curious. I could see reasons why you would want either, but I would vastly prefer trial by combat. At least you have a chance. Yeah, combat. I think everyone's like... With modern medicine, I mean, I'm thinking medieval period. Like, yeah. I feel like recovering from a burn, if your life depended on it in the modern period, would be fine. But back then, you'd get infections, you'd get fucked up real bad. Yeah, combat. Yeah, I think so. Get the swords out and fight for the truth. Exactly. At least you got some conviction behind it, right? If someone wants to accuse you of something, well, if they're poor, not rich, can't hire a champion, they've got to, they've got to believe it, because then they've got to actually fight you for it. But obviously that led to its own injustices, where women, for instance... Actually, I think women got to choose a champion just for free. But indeed, it would just probably be their husbands most of the time, or fathers if they were young. But still, it's like, not great if you are poor, because if you're accusing someone who's a lot stronger than you, so maybe not great, who knows. But still, I prefer it over ordeal, personally. I believe in wee. That's it, I'm getting me mallet. I'm not me waiting to get the Steam frame so I can do some real good sword fighting. I don't... Okay. Okay. I feel like I've backed up a bit. You want me to get slightly closer? Yeah, whatever. Booba. Trial by Snuggles. Not quite. Alright, well, I think that's everything I wanted to say on the Norman period, specifically. I do want to talk about Hardrada, but I think I'll save that for when we're talking about the Vikings. Because it kind of relates to how their trade routes, their trips down the Volga, etc., which we will talk about, and indeed Constantinople, and their relations to the Byzantine Empire, because weirdly enough, there was quite a strong connection between the Byzantine Empire and Vikings, with something called the Varangian Guard, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But I want to move to a different topic now. We'll take a little cool down, we'll have a chat for a bit, but the next topic I want to do is and this is the one I'm quite excited to talk about, because I feel like it's under-talked about, is the build-up to World War I, and what led Europe to become the powder keg that it was, as Bismarck called it. Because it's interesting. There's a lot that happened, and a lot of knock-on effects from what you'd consider insignificant things that built up and became really quite major issues. And we'll be starting at the Treaty of Vienna, which was signed after Napoleon... I don't know why I said it like that. Napoleon's war, multiple wars. The Treaty of Vienna basically gave a lot of countries new lands that they didn't have before. As you can imagine, this had some rather major knock-on effects. But yes, how are we feeling, chat, after that conversation? You want to be sat in your little chairs? Are you happy? Wow. Hold on, I've got an idea. Give me a second. Look, I can come sit on your desk. How are you feeling? Meow? Is that fun? Did you enjoy learning? Do you feel like you've been educated slightly? Should I give you a test? You like story time? I like story time, it's fun. Hyped. Yeah, the Franco-Prussian War, we're going to be talking about that, absolutely, because that came, again, as a result of the Treaty of Vienna, with its knock-on effects and what have you. And also we're going to be talking about the 7 Weeks' War, about how Austria was almost a part of Germany, which would have changed history an awful lot. I do want to discuss some alternative history ideas, especially coming to the Cold War. A lot of things that could go very wrong during the Cold War. I just realised chat's kind of in an awkward position. I moved it previously. Let's move cat chat. Boop. There you go. Live on this side. You be slightly bigger. Should we make you a little bit bigger? My hands are shaking too much. I've had a lot of caffeine, chat. Is that too big? Ah! Oh, piss off. Oh my goodness. We're quite low down here. I feel bad. Alright, now I've completely lost it all out. There we go. Crikey. Oh, my hand is so shaky today. Holy moly. Alright. Yeah, cat chat got absolutely fucking purged. Anyway, I can also get you up in here if you want. Hi. Meow. You want kisses? Mwah. Hi, Demi. Hi, sweetie. You want mummy talk? I'm a teacher. I need to behave myself today. But, I mean, do you feel educated? Do you feel like you've learned a lot today? You want to say thank you, Miss Teacher? Thank you so much. You're so nice to me. Or something like that? Imagine calling your teacher mummy. Sorry, mummy. Sorry, mummy. Sorry, mummy. You like the outfit, by the way? I love the outfit. I might use it more often, to be honest, even outside of, this. It's cute. It suits me. I love the glasses. I might put glasses on more outfits. I think they suit me out, don't you? Happen a bit too often for me. That's crazy. Oh my goodness. When my glasses are peak, your peak, darling. Anyway. Let me just get a sip of Meowster quickly. Keep the hands shaking and the brain overstimulated. I used to drink loads of Meowster when I was at work, like in front of the kids, and I felt, man, I'm such a bad role model. Just downing multiple energy drinks a day. Well, not multiple energy drinks, but every day I'd come in. If I was feeling particularly fatigued before work, I'd be like, it used to be that I'd get a frappe or a nice like coffee, but then I was like, this does not wake me up enough. So I started buying energy drinks. So yeah, not a brilliant role model. But I don't know. Do you feel like I'm an excellent role model, Chad? I think I am. There we go. Meowster drank. Yum yum yum. Your kidneys will be angry one day. I drink enough water. I drink water pretty often. In fact, I'm drinking water as I drink Meowster together. Think you might be violating the dress code. Nah, I don't know what you're on about. Meowing naughty to each other. A little bit. A smidge. I should have my godmother as my biology teacher for 1 minute. Yeah, that is quaint. To be honest, I remember when my mum was a teaching assistant at the school I worked in. That was quite cute. I remember coming to see her every now and again during break time. That was when I was in primary school. I hate glasses. I'm wearing glasses. Meow point. I'm not peak. I'm Moldu. You're not peak. So true. Anyway. Other than that, can't think of any issues. I'm lovely. I don't know what you're on about. Anyway, shall we start talking? Let's give you a nice little chronology on the build-up to World War One. Who here knows what World War One is? Feel like at least one of you would be like, huh? Huh? No, I'm joking. I know you all are. But who's familiar with the Treaty of Vienna? I feel like not many of you would be, but it is a more global issue. We won't be talking about England as much during this. This is a more Germanic-focused thing, because I learnt most of this when I was doing my A-levels, and we studied Germany, and from its foundation onwards. And to be honest, it also ended up covering quite nicely the build-up to World War One. So this will be from a largely German, Prussian, Austrian sort of viewpoint. Well, not viewpoint, but, you know, like, we'll be talking about Germany a lot. Because, I mean, well, at the end of the day, Germany was one of the most major combatants during World War One, and kind of was a bit of the glue that caused all these alliances to start to strain. That's not what a glue does. The tension. You know what I mean. They were a bit of where a lot of the problems came from. Indeed, France was too, but we'll focus more on Germany for this one. People digging their own graves, rotting as they fight for moving forward. Yeah, I mean, that's basically the Napoleonic Wars. Yeah, you are. Well, actually, they moved quite quickly during the Napoleonic Wars, as they took their graves for each other. But yes, it was quite brutal. I don't know too much about the Napoleonic Wars, I'll be honest. I wish I knew a bit more. But luckily, we're starting after the Napoleonic Wars, so I don't need to worry about that. Be prepared to have your glasses have endless smudges on them. You will always think, I never touched that. It doesn't matter, it's the magic portals actually move your fingerprints to any surface anytime they touch any other surface. Okay, so thank you, Waffle. I just cleaned my glasses, would you believe that? I'm joking. It's quite funny. Anyway, so we'll start with the Treaty of Vienna. And I want to talk, first of all, about Austria and how the Treaty of Vienna lended itself to the 7 Weeks' War. Now, what happened with Germany is, of course, the main nation that pushed for the foundation of Germany was Prussia. Of course, that was where the Kaiser came from, that's where Otto von Bismarck came from, and a lot of the later German nobility would come from Prussia. Prussia, you may know Prussia's reputation. It was a formidable nation, very powerful military, especially during the Napoleonic Wars, put up a hell of a fight against Napoleon. They were the definitive strongest nation in Europe, barring France. You know, they went toe-to-toe. But for a lot of their history, they were very powerful, very influential nation. And During this period, after the HRE had fallen, and ever since then, I mean, even during the HRE, it was loads of tiny little German states, and of course the Germans will know this, it's still made up of slightly less tiny, but still quite small German states. Germany was, I can't remember exactly how many there was. I think it was high. There was a lot of small nations. Did you see I did see that, and it's very exciting, but it's going to be in like 1 billion years, so I will wait until it's a little bit closer. No little German state, don't go into the doomed war. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But, yes. What happened is that Austria was viewed by Prussia as a rival, and especially after the Treaty of Vienna. Because what happened during the Treaty of Vienna is Prussia didn't really gain too much land. It gained a bit, it did alright off of it. But Austria, who had a pretty big part in the treaty, gained a significant thing for them. Previously, Austria had been completely landlocked, and during the medieval period, well, I mean, medieval onwards, this is past medieval, during the early modern period, being landlocked versus having a port, during this age of early colonialism and exports, trade, etc., being landlocked was a massive debuff for your nation. So, during the Vienna Treaty, Austria finally, where Italy kind of connects to, the rest of Europe? There's this tiny little area. I can't remember what the sea's called. Is it the Caspian Sea, or is that something completely different? Anyway, there's a little area there, and they got a little port right at the top of Italy, and they finally had a sea route connection to the rest of the world. As a result, Austria was able to make significant amounts of money from this port, and they were now starting to get to a level of economic viability and military strength that it was starting to rival Prussia. Moreover, the writing was on the wall. Prussia, seeing their rival starting to gain strength, it had previously been quite cowed, quite restricted from doing anything, because Prussia was the de facto military strength in Europe. And if Austria tried anything that Prussia didn't approve of, well, Prussia would just bully them. But seeing this economic strength being gained by Austria during this period, it led to Prussia wanting to take action against them. And this is what led to the 7 Weeks' War. Before Austria could become powerful, there was the German Economic Union. This was the predecessor to Germany. I might be mixing up the timeline here. I can't remember if the Economic Union was before or after Austria. I think it were after what's the word? What's it actually called? I know it is the 7 Week War. Would it be Austro-Prussian War? Something like that. Whatever. Either way, this economic union was definitely planned before it. I believe it was instated before that. But this was the predecessor to Germany. And Austria was excluded from it. As well as a couple other states, but fucking they're tiny, who cares? Caspian Sea's West Asia. Yeah, what am I thinking of? Having a world map here would be amazing, actually. That Adriatic, that's the word. Thank you, darling. A map would be helpful, but I don't think I have one. Or I don't have a way to get one. Damn, that would be helpful. I should have thought about that. Because I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm thinking of in my head, but it probably would have helped if I had a map. What can I do to get us a map? Could go to a different world. You are right there. That is a good point that I didn't think of. We'll keep talking for now. You can pull up a map at home. Look where Austria is. It doesn't matter too much. You know what helps with getting your brain to work? What's that, Meowster? 40 squats. I'm not doing squats in class. I'm sorry, darling. Repetitive task. I'm gonna throw a brick at you. It's what I'm gonna do. Either way. So, as this economic union formed, Austria was excluded. And eventually, Prussia, in an attempt to basically kick Austria while it's down, declared war on it. I can't remember what their justification is, but realistically, it was because they were doing too economically well. Prussia typically didn't really need a reason to declare war on people. They were quite gung-ho with that. They just kind of did it. They would later declare war on Denmark as well, and later France, as we'll discuss. In fact, I believe the Danish War came before. Yes, it did. I remember now. All right, let's talk quickly about the Danish War. So basically what had happened is, before the Economic Union had formed, there was a war against Denmark. Austria tried to claim a bit of Danish land to the south, and they actually had Austria join in. Now, this was part of a big strategy by the Prussians to essentially put Austria in a disadvantageous position, because they said, you let us take part of this land, and we'll let you have a decent chunk of this land as well. So they worked with Austria. Of course, when war was eventually declared, I believe that was their justification, was the land in Denmark. Austria had this little bit of land, and it just got taken over when Prussia declared war on Austria, in which they did, and they defeated Austria in 7 weeks, and it was an absolute bullying session. I have to condemn the bright young men to death on the battlefield because I'm bored. Exactly. Sway. But yeah, thus the 7-week war happened, and Austria was crippled. They took a lot of quite valuable land on the border, and indeed by Denmark. And yeah, Austria never quite recovered from that for a little while. Why are we swaying? Are we enjoying swaying, chat? We having a little sway sesh? Sway. Meow. Austria mentioned. Yeah, Austria dead. Alright, chat. I'll take it as you paying attention. Going. Monkey see, monkey do. I see. Ooh, pay attention. Sorry, that's not not appropriate. Or is it? Ooh. Anyway. Meow point. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, so this is what led to Austria eventually never becoming part of Germany. There was a period of time where it could have technically been possible that Austria was a German state, but did not happen. Indeed, obviously, as World War II came along, that's what Hitler had in his mind with the Anschluss and all that sort of stuff, but we're not talking much about World War II today. Well, yeah, it was in 1939. Exactly, it was. But that was under slightly different pretenses. less mutual. Although slightly mutual. Hi, Tori. Nice to see you, darling. But then we go on to Russia, once again, being a massive pain in the arse, and forming what would eventually be the rivalry of France. I mean, they never trusted France. France was the one power that could really stand up to Prussia, at least in the European continent. Britain was pretty strong at the time. Indeed, we'll see later on that there was a bit of an arms race, which we will talk about in the build-up to World War I. But France, well, Britain was somewhat amicable towards Prussia, but France, fuck France. No one likes France, especially Prussia. Yeah, that's what I mean. But like, it's different compared to the mutual unification that happened during the war against France, the Paris. What's it called? Paris Treaty? There's so many Paris treaties. Either way, so the Franco-Prussian War, big war, very fun. Once again, Prussia. Going over details because we've got a lot to cover. Prussia won. Prussia won very, very significantly so, because it had the backing of all these German states. Germany was starting to become a firm idea in people's minds, and the German states were very heavily unified under this idea of forming Germany. This, was troubling to France and part of why the tensions were so high. But of course, I mean, France ended up getting put in its place during this Franco-Prussian War. Those look heavy, they do indeed. Maybe you can come hold them while I teach. Not the Treaty of Versailles, that is the end of World War I. This is the end of the Franco-Prussian War, which comes a decent bit before then. This is before Germany was a country. Treaty of Versailles was signed in Versailles, but that was the peace treaty for for Germany. But this one happened in Paris. And this treaty was when France surrendered. It's quite a kick to the teeth with France, who used to be this very powerful nation because of Napoleon, because of everything that happened there. Prussia basically walked over it. They marched into Paris, and in Paris, after peace was declared, in Paris, declared the unification of the German state. And that is when Germany was formed. In Paris, weirdly enough. Not in Germany, but in Paris. And there becomes the German state. And from there, that's where we start to see the build-up to World War One, because this German state really wanted to kind of throw its weight around economically and militarily. You're telling me Germany was actually a bunch of Germanys in one German trench coat? It was, and for a lot of its history it was. Even the HRE was just a big German trench coat. But yeah, Napoleon was so spooky, Portugal's royalty was temporarily in Brazil. He was very scary. Napoleon was really something else. I don't know much about him, and I wish I did, but I know how much. To be fair, it's quite funny because, like, he was just very hyper-focused. He did lose a few things during his time. Weirdly enough, I know more about the Haitian Revolution than I do about Napoleon's war. But he lost Haiti. Haiti's such a funny story. I'm going on a tangent now, but it's very short. So, originally owned by France, there was a big slave uprising, because slavery was still around in Haiti at the time. Massive slave uprising, and France was Napoleon was too focused on Europe, and France basically said, fuck this. And you want to know what's funny? Is England, seeing that France had fucked off from Haiti, this revolution, which had technically won for a moment, England rolls on up to Haiti and fucking invades it. Because they were like, ooh, this nice colonial place, don't mind if I do, and they yoink it away and declare war, and then they get their ass beat by it as well. So yeah, and Spain too, I believe, has a bit of involvement in it as well. It's quite funny. That was what I was typing. Yeah. Oh yes, the Polish people indeed, because they were, yes, they kind of related to him. It's funny because the Haitian Revolution, to a certain extent, was inspired by the American Revolution, which then inspired the French Revolution, which brought about their oppression, or heavier oppression under the new French. But either way, that's quite funny. Tangents are necessary for a history lecture, exactly. So I'm enjoying this a lot more than teaching students, because I can just rant about whatever the fuck I want, and it's fun. But hello, darling. It's nice to have you here. Talvamia. Hello, my darling. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Gotta go to Tahiti. Just need to have a little faith, darling. If you could talk about Pedro II of Brazil, that'd be sick. I don't know very much about Brazil. I'm really sorry I do know a bit of modern history. I know about the Lobster War, just through chance reading, and that's the only thing I know about Brazil. It's the Lobster War. But I could tell you all about the Lobster War, which is quite silly. There's a lobster war. Oh, you don't know about that? I thought you meant to be Brazilian. I would have thought you knew more about that. Okay, alright. Last tangent, I promise. We'll go back to World War One. Lobster war, in brief, this was quite a modern war. I believe it was the 70s. France was being an arsehole, which is quite consistent for France during the 70s, I'm going to be honest, in the Cold War. France was super dickish. Like, a lot. Like, I learning history really put me off, like, they're better these days, but fucking hell, like 50 years ago, France was crazy. Like, fucking hell. But yeah, what they essentially did, less significant than things like blowing up a civilian boat, which we won't talk about right now because that's a bit more modern. But they were fishing in Brazil's water. There was, I believe, a governmental change in Brazil, and they kicked all the French fishermen out, and they were doing, lots of lobster in Brazil's water. So only 50. All right. But that's the point. I'm not here to rag on a modern country right now. But France wasn't very happy about that. So what they did is they were like, oh well, I mean, how we need to do a scientific research expedition. into your water to study small amounts of lobster. Can we? And they were like, sure. So France, with their research expedition, sent a lot of fishing vessels to go and fish for lobsters. When for a long time they kind of got away with that for a good few months, and then Brazil caught on and they kicked them all out. And you want to know what's funny? A few months later, they're like, "Where were we? Saw we? Can we do some more research?" And they were like, sure. And they did it again, except this time they sent Coast Guard vessels to keep an eye on the French fishing vessels. And in response, you want to know what France did? They sent a fucking destroyer to go and protect these fishing boats. You know what's funny? The Coast Guard still boarded the French fishing boats, and commandeered them, and the destroyer didn't do anything. But it was very close. There was quite a high amount of tension, and it was very, 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 very almost broke out into a full-scale war. But it didn't. So, history that never would be. But it is funny. There was almost a war over some lobster. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a nothing like World War I. That's a major tangent. But anyway, where did I even get there? Dost thou fucking kid me? Research. Yeah. Usable for latex and stuff. Yes. Anyway, let's not talk about Brazil right now. We can later on. Don't worry. We've got a little... I've set aside time for tangents where we can just talk about whatever interests you. But I want to finish our World War I thing. So where did we get to? Oh yes, German unification. So, Germany had unified, and now they're a nice big nation. And the reason that Germany had been Prussia and now Germany had been doing so well for themselves was Otto von Bismarck. And Otto von Bismarck was a very talented statesman. Say what you will about him. He was very good at leading the country. They had Wilhelm I as Kaiser, and he was a complete pushover for Bismarck. Perhaps rightfully so. Bismarck knew what he was doing, and Wilhelm I was like, alright, whatever. But when Wilhelm I died, that started to throw problems in for Bismarck. Now, Bismarck, being, a very talented statesman, had started forming a very strong foreign policy that is not like you would expect from, knowing how World War I ended up happening. Indeed, Germany was in fact allied to Russia. Quite heavily allied to Russia, and had some treaties with England as well. Two countries that eventually, during World War I, Germany would be at war with. Still weren't best of friends with France, but that wasn't going to happen. And not so strong ties with Austria. Russia, indeed, was actually a very close ally to Germany, and they were quite keen to help each other. This was quite a powerful alliance, and had it gone through, well, it would have changed the course of history. But Kaiser Wilhelm I, he was happy to let that happen, but when he died, there was Frederick. You want to know what Frederick did? He died straight away. And then there was Wilhelm II, and he was not very happy with Bismarck. He did not like Bismarck. Wilhelm II was very strong-headed. He was very dedicated. He was not a brilliant statesman. He didn't really know what he was doing, but you can't fault him for being very keen to not let Bismarck tell him what to do. Freddy Deddy, exactly. Give someone £5 if they throw a rubber at the teacher. What the hell? Give me £5, and I'll suffocate you with booba. Yes. Where was I? Oh yes, Wilhelm II. And Wilhelm had a new foreign policy for Germany called Weltpolitik, and he wanted to focus on German colonialism, which, for those who are relatively familiar with Germany, might come as a bit of a shock. But yes, he actually went on a bit of an endeavour to have some colonial properties, which Germany hadn't focused on before then. And Germany was being a bit outcompeted by England and Spain and even France. And France. I shouldn't be so demeaning to France. They did recently lose the Franco-Prussian War, though. So they were still not at the best of their strength during that period. But colonially, they were all outpacing Germany by a significant margin. Part of that involved Germany now pivoting itself to a new type of alliance, and Wilhelm II, almost out of spite, not entirely, but almost out of spite for Bismarck's plans, basically reversed how the alliances in Germany work. He threw aside his alliance with Russia and England and replaced it with the alliances that you come to know in World War I. Most notably, to an extent, Italy, but that switched around a little bit because Italy was kind of playing both sides, so they always end up on top, and they had a bit of an agreement with England, but that's quite complex, we won't go into that. Italy, but most notably Austria-Hungary. They formed a very close alliance with Austria-Hungary because, again, Bismarck came from the Prussian times, and Bismarck still had a strong grudge against the Austrians to a certain extent, because of, everything. Because he was still Chancellor during the 7-Week War and all that sort of stuff. He was not keen on allying with them. But Wilhelm II, being a lot younger than Bismarck, was more keen to pursue an alliance. He scrapped Russia, scrapped England, and formed very close bonds with Austria and a few others, of course. But this really upset Bismarck, because the Kaiser had the final say in what, in everything. Kaiser Wilhelm I, he'd been a bit of a pushover. He just pushed through everything that Bismarck wanted. Wilhelm II, he started to put a lot of pushback on this sort of stuff. And Bismarck, he genuinely crashed out. It's very funny. Do you want to know what he did? When they had a big fight over it, I was like, "Hi, Akira. Hi, sweetie." He, in a fit of rage, he was a very, very interesting fella, Bismarck. Fit of rage, he grabbed an ink vial while arguing with the Kaiser, and in his resignation, he resigned, and he threw ink all over the Kaiser, which is fucking crazy. If anyone other than Bismarck did that, they would be fucking executed. It's crazy, but he just could walk away from that. Exactly. But then it was it was the Kaiser against the world. He installed quite a few other chancellors that did and did not work out, which you'll notice is a theme throughout German history, especially during the Weimar Republic. Chancellors that are really shit at their job. But for Wilhelm II's purposes, they were perfect because they were complete pushovers. He pushed through whatever legislation he wanted, and indeed in excellent control over his foreign policy. And that's what put us in the position of World War I. These very strong alliances with nations, and with Kaiser, with Kaiser Wilhelm II in control, it led to that strong alliance, which, when Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated, Austria-Hungary declared war on Bolivia? Was it Bulgaria? No, not Bolivia. That's fucking. What's the other one? Yeah, it is Bulgaria then. Alright, I'm mixing up the country names. But, was it Bulgaria? Am I stupid? They were yeah, I'm trying to remember what the chain was now. There was a chain of it. I don't think... give me a second. World War I alliance trait. This is very complex and I always forget which way it goes. Because it was Bosnia that... Oh no, but sorry, not Bosnia, sorry, it's Bulgaria. Yeah. Because Bulgaria was the one that was allied with England, right? Sorry. There you go, we got the things. Yeah, it was Bulgaria. Oh, Bulgaria was the ally that joined Austria-Hungary. And then Serbia had Russia. And Russia was allied with Britain and France. And that's how the war happened. Bulgaria was on the German side. Alright, so I had to double check that because I'm silly. But there you go. Yeah, it was Serbia. Yeah, I was thinking Bulgaria because that's like the next one in the chain. Yeah, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and then Serbia was declared war on by... Yeah. It's a long... You get the picture. Lots of wars. Everyone went declared war. And there you go. There's all the build-up. Wasn't there a story of World War I about specific Christmas where they had a truce? Yeah, the Christmas truce. That's a very nice story. It's pretty simple. So the first Christmas of the war... Hi, Fruitless. Thank you, darling. The first year of the war that Christmas came around, 1917, there were actually was it 19? It was 1917, so it wasn't the first Christmas, but like World War One was pretty late. It was 1917, right? The Christmas tree. It's not 1916. Double checking. Why did I say 1917? Oh, I'm terrible with dates. It was 1914. 1917 is when. Yeah, ignore me. I say really stupid things because I get things stuck in my mind that are completely wrong, and I try and justify it. Yeah, it was 1916. No, 1914. Oh my goodness. See, I just said the wrong thing again. It was in 1914. There was a Christmas truce because yes, it was the first Christmas of the war, obviously, and I then somehow forgot the date that World War One was because I'm fucking stupid. Yes, and it's quite simple, really. You know, people. Back during World War One, there wasn't as much animosity between the people fighting in the trenches compared to like World War Two. The war hadn't been raging for too long. It was a bit of a slog. It had been miserable, but it was still the first year of the war. In fact, it hadn't even been a year of fighting. And it's a bit of a callback to, you know, kind of older times where people had a bit more of a concept of honor in war. I think World War Two was really what kind of collapsed the idea of honor in war for obvious reasons. But there was still a lot of that kind of principle, and it manifested itself in 1914. They had a truce on Christmas. It wasn't everywhere. A lot of people assume that it was everywhere. It was in pocketed states. But it did happen. It absolutely did happen on quite a large scale too. Don't get me wrong. And yeah, quite famously, there was a football match between the Germans, and for 2 days there was no fighting. That did not happen the next year. In fact, rather unhappy ending to this. It was ordered that if anyone was caught, any generals were caught participating in a Christmas truce in 1917, they were ordered to be executed for treason. So that didn't happen again, which is a pity. But yes, it's a nice story. It is a nice story. Yeah, it didn't happen again, no. It happened in pockets during World War II, but very small pockets. There's a couple of stories of people putting it aside, but yeah. And in fact, I think it happened in a couple of isolated states in the following years, but not on such a large scale as the first year. But yeah, it's a nice story. I still remember in England, we have Christmas adverts sometimes, as I'm sure other countries do. A famous one that I still absolutely love is Sainsbury's did a Christmas truce advert. And to be honest, despite being an advert, it was very sweet. And that's always what I think of when I think of the Christmas truce. It's a very cute advert. I encourage you to look it up. It was a very long time ago now. I'm very aggressively anti-war. I think a lot of people are. Ain't no honor in nukes. Oh yeah, true. But war still happens, even with nuclear weapons. But yeah, you won't find any Christmas truces in Ukraine or anything like that these days. It's a bit of a relic, those types of wars. For better or for worse. Probably for better, typically. Not that Ukraine's particularly pleasant at the moment. But yeah. Yes, I mean, there's lots of very brutal World War movies, indeed. But yeah. Anyway, there you go. There's our small little talk on the build-up to World War One. Yeah, yeah, indeed. Such is the way of the world. I'm here to, I'm here to talk about history. It is how it is. History's brutal and fascinating all the same. I'm just gonna have a meowster real quick. Little shippy. Keep the brain going. The little foxcar brain. Are we enjoying this so far, by the way, champ? We having a nice time? I'm enjoying this, by the way. I always feel guilty when I start ranting about history during our normal streams, because I'm like, who wants to see this? Well, evidently you guys are enjoying yourselves, which I do appreciate. I'm glad you're having a fun time. I'm having a very fun time. So, our next topic. Oh yeah, we're going to do the Vikings. We're going back even further than medieval. We're going to do... Thank you, Fruitless, for the one bit. Silly little thing. Akira, thank you for the follow, darling. Very, very kind. Much appreciated, my darling. Having fun. Kind of wish I was there. There was more non-Europe stuff. That's just what I know about, I'm sorry to say. I mean, I can absolutely talk about non-European stuff, but I don't know them as well. The thing is, a lot of this stuff is stuff that I was taught in high school, A-levels, university, and a lot of it is European-based. I can tell you a lot about somewhat European stuff, like transatlantic slave trade. I know a lot about that. I know a decent bit about... Oh, I just thought of something. I know this is another English thing, but the English Civil War is very interesting. I know a lot about that. What do I know outside of Europe? Quite a lot about. I know a lot about the Three Kingdoms, but the Three Kingdoms is kind of hard to talk about because it's really complex. Tell you a decent bit about Japan. I can talk a lot about World War II outside, like the outside of Europe theaters. I can tell you a lot about the war between China and Japan. I can tell you a lot about the foundation of communist China and that war. Hi, Tori. Sorry, I'm just drinking my things. Yeah, the Three Kingdoms is kind of fun. The thing is, you've got the romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is it's a funny book because it's kind of right, but it's also completely made up at the same time. It's a fake story that is heavily based in real things. Think of it like think of it, you know, the game Kingdom Come Deliverance. That is a made up story that is based around real figures and real events. It's kind of like that. And the author is a lot in the future. He does a good job at portraying some of the real history behind it, but also it's not a timepiece. And I'm very familiar with the book, but less familiar with everything else. Well, we're going to talk a bit about the Byzantine Empire. I don't know if you count that as Europe. I can't tell you much about... You know, I'm really sorry to tell you this. I think the only thing that I know a lot about from South America is Pablo Escobar. So I'm sorry to say that. I do know a lot about Pablo Escobar. I suppose I know a lot about the football war. I know about that war where almost everyone fucking died. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a bad thing to say. Mongol invasion of Japan, I know a little bit about that. But yeah. Yeah, the one in Paraguay. That's nasty. I can tell you a decent bit about Pinochet. The Asian history there. No, not Pinochet. Fucking Pol Pot. Why did I say Pinochet? Completely different person. I can tell you a bit about Pol Pot. I'm trying to think of topics. How's history going? Doing very well. I'm just saying. Moti said that I'm not talking enough about stuff outside of Europe, and I'm trying to think what other topics do I know a decent bit about that I could tell you about from outside of Europe. The issue of being a European is you know a lot of European history, and that's about it. I mean, I know a lot of Russian history. That's still kind of Europe. Oh no, it's fine. No, you are right. You are right. I'm just teaching you things I know a lot about, and that just happens to all be European stuff. Mansa Musa. Yes, I do know a little bit about him. Not much, though. I can tell you... what do I know about... I know a few Middle Eastern things. It's mostly like modern history. Like, you know... war in Iraq and stuff like that. And yes, I do consider that modern history. Because it was a long time ago now. Pol Pot. Yeah, I can tell you a decent bit about it. There's not much to say. Just he was like a fucking bastard. You know, like... I can tell you a bit about what led to him coming into power and what happened afterwards. I still think it's unfortunate that Vietnam put up with him for so long. Just because they were technically a communist. But, like, Vietnam knew all this was happening, all the genocide and stuff like that, and Vietnam was like, yeah, but he's a communist, and we kind of like that. You want to know a bit, this, again, kind of linking it to England, you want to know who was pretty alright with the old Pol Pot, got along with him pretty well? It's only Maggie Thatcher. We love Maggie Thatcher here. Yeah, she was very friendly and chummy with old Pol Pot compared to how she should have been. But yeah. No way. Yes way. Absolutely. She was. She completely overlooked what was going on in Cambodia, and indeed had some pretty decently friendly relations with Pol Pot. Yeah, Thatcher. She is, I guess, another piece of South American history that was controversial last time I spoke about it, but I know a lot about the Falklands. Did you know that the Falklands, obviously, you know, I'm sorry any Argentinians who are about to get very upset with me, it was obviously Argentina's fault that the war broke out, but Margaret Thatcher absolutely set the stage for it to happen, because you want to know, a lot of people, you know, like, oh yeah, Margaret Thatcher, she stopped the Falklands War. I think she caused it to a certain extent. She was definitely, as a result of her decisions to pull military personnel away from faraway territories like the Falklands, is why Argentina saw it as a perfect time to invade, because there was no fucking garrison there, because she defunded our military, she moved soldiers away from the Falklands, and Argentina was like, oh my goodness, free land! So a lot of people love to praise her for her response, but she had no other choice. Like, a part of English territory was invaded, she had to take a hard stance to it, but it all happened because she was so weak on it, which I guess ironically ended up doing her a favour because she ended a war that she ended up starting. But yeah, don't you call it the Maldives? You know what it's called. No, I don't actually care that much, but it is an interesting period. Absolutely, but exactly, exactly. I do not like Margaret Thatcher. The more you study history, the more terrible events you realise are very heavily linked to her and her oversights and stuff. If something went wrong during the 80s, you can find her undividedly supporting the terrible thing that's going on. Time to watch me while driving, don't get distracted. Anyway, that's me going on a tangent. This was the kind of our intermediary part. We're going to talk about the Vikings in a bit. Luckily, unless you count, like, you know, the human sacrifice by the Astaru, there's nothing really related to Margaret Thatcher, you know, like, maybe you could say that she was probably, you know, engaging in human sacrifice, sacrificing the souls of children as, you know, stuff like that, but that's probably, probably unrelated, but we will, well, there was human sacrifice under the Astaru religion. Did you know that? A lot of people don't actually know that it wasn't common by any extent, but it did happen. I'm not doing push-ups and I'm not doing squats. People keep redeeming that. I'm trying to teach things. I'm not gonna do push-ups and then fucking teach you while I do it. Probably is not definitely. Yeah, I'm sorry, but there probably was. There's multiple accounts of it happening. They did do a lot of animal sacrifice, but there were cases noted. But one could say that they are bias accounts because these accounts typically come from the period where the Viking people, you know, Scandinavia was Christianizing, and a lot of these accounts come from, you know, supporters, you know, missionaries and whatnot. But it's a very widespread report, so there's perhaps some validity to it, but it could also be false. So it's hard to know with that sort of thing. So I'm sorry, I probably did put too much certainty in that. It could absolutely not be true. Anyway. Yep, meow meow. Indeed. Why do you keep cheering one bit? Thank you, Fruitless. Wiggly teacher. Oh, wiggly, wiggly, wiggly. It's a nice outfit. You wanna hold on, let's give you it's quite tight fitting. But it's nice. Very, very pretty. No. I like it. I'm very fond of it. Hee. Right, where are we facing in the room? There we go. Oh, there we go. I'm failing class. You are. Don't get distracted. Anyway, shall we talk about the Vikings a little bit? I think with the Vikings, there's less of a. It's going to be a more cultural thing we're going to talk about here. We did a bit of culture on the Normans, but I think what I want to talk about a decent bit is just, I suppose, Viking misrepresentations. I feel like it's a lot of people know the basics of the Vikings. You know, what sort of people they were, you know, the raiding, stuff like that. But they weren't just raiders. They actually had a culture. They were a people that lived for a long time. And while they were nomadic tribes and all that sort of stuff, they weren't all raiders even. Some tribes were actually not pacifist, but they didn't do raiding. You know, that's the thing with a tribal society, is there are lots of tribes and they all do very different things. And lots of tribes did resort to raiding because there wasn't much room to grow crops up in fucking Norway. But not all of them. Also, thank you very much for the follow, Spearmint VR. Nice to have you here. Welcome. So, I suppose one interesting thing. It's going to be a bit of a deluge of facts, a bit different from our other kind of like linear stories that we've been telling so far. But I want to talk a bit about Hardrada. I want to talk about the Viking advancements and the way that he came to be and what makes his story very fascinating. So I suppose we'll start by talking about Viking exploration. A lot of people know this about the Vikings, but the Vikings actually discovered a lot of land and they traveled very, very, very far. You know, modern Ukraine, modern Russia? Those were founded by Vikings. In fact, yeah, Kiev is a Viking city. It was founded. It's one of the older cities in like major settlements in the Russian area, and it was founded by Vikings who were traveling down the Volga, and they needed a place to stay because obviously it's a long, long journey. They would travel down the Volga, and what's at the end of the Volga? Constantinople. The Vikings would trade far and wide, all sorts of things, and indeed they would trade in slaves. Some of them were raiders, but they were also traders. Some of them would trade local goods, pelts, furs, etc., things that were very rare down all the way in Constantinople, but all sorts of things. And they very, very eager traders. And we know that because we have found Muslim coins all the way up in Scandinavia. And in fact, Muslims would often travel up the Volga as well to go trade with Vikings and the rest of Europe. But they would also go down south. We found Viking axes. We know of the Varangian Guard. The Varangian Guard is a very interesting group. That was the personal bodyguard of the Byzantine Emperor. Hi, Spearmint. Hi, sweetie. Sorry, I might do some squats right at the end if I'm feeling generous, okay? But I'm trying to teach a lesson. Rigi. But the Varangian Guard, very interesting group of people, because these personal guards of the Byzantine Empire were mercenaries, because with all the subterfuge, all the typical medieval fuckery that goes on, having Byzantinian bodyguards was a risk, because you never know what sort of affiliations they could have within the empire. So they took people from very far away, and the vast majority of them were the bold raider warriors that had come all the way from Scandinavia down to Constantinople. And that's what Hardrada was. He was a Varangian Guard. It wasn't always Norsemen, but it usually was. And you had lots and lots of these people coming, and not only staying for mercenary work, but also living in Constantinople. Constantinople was a fascinating city. People from all around the world came there. It's one of kind of the earliest sort of very heavily multicultural areas. A lot of this stuff came from the Crusades. You'd be surprised. Some people mentioned the Crusades before. Jerusalem as well was really multicultural for a long period after the Crusades. You'd think that it would be filled with a lot of hate and vitriol, but actually a lot of people who ended up setting there, it was pretty, there was lots of Muslims, lots of Christians. There were periods where, one side or the other wiped each other out. But for a lot of its history, they got along very, very well, actually, typically. And they were very respectful of each other. We have a lot of accounts of that from both Muslim and Christian scholars who've written about their experiences going on pilgrimages to Jerusalem. And they're surprised, indeed as a lot of modern people are surprised, to find that actually they got along pretty well. People lived in harmony quite well there. And the same went on Constantinople. You had people from all around the world getting along really quite well, which is quite nice. It's quite pleasant until it burnt to the ground and everyone died. But you know, that's that's a different story. Such is history. Such is history. I mean, it stood for a very, very long time. It was pretty peaceful for a lot of its history. But yes, the Vikings loved to trade in Constantinople. They didn't have the people of Constantinople didn't have the best opinions of Vikings. There's quite a well-known account of a Muslim scholar who writes that he was very appalled by their stink and that they refused to use the baths. That might not be true of everyone. He might just not like Vikings. But apparently they didn't like to wash as much as the typical people of Constantinople. But still, nonetheless, they were invited, well respected, because they were traders, and that's what people loved in Constantinople. Rare goods and strong warriors. So yeah, on top of that, I'm sure a lot of you know about Leif Erikson, or have at least heard that name. You've got Iceland and Greenland. There's a bit of a funny story to that. I'm not sure how true it is, but the reason Iceland and Greenland reversed each other, where Greenland is frigid and miserable despite being called Greenland, is literally to trick people into moving there. I don't know how true that is. It sounds a bit made up, but it could be true. And that apparently purports from the Viking times where they needed people for their little colony up north. This is lovely. I'm glad you enjoy it. Were there butterflies in the Byzantine... Well, how do you want me to say it? Okay. I call it the Byzantine Empire, but I guess Byzantine. It's easier to say. Okay, I'm sorry. Will screaming at me. Hello. Heard Vikings were very generous, provided lodging, meals, and gifts to travellers. Yes, again, it's the thing with Vikings, and it's quite hard to teach you about Viking culture, is because they were tribal, there were a lot of differences between tribes. For instance, women in Viking society, in a lot of tribes, not all of them, a lot of tribes, women had very similar rights to men. In fact, when men would go abroad for trading or raiding, it was often women who ended up running the towns out of pure practicality of needing people to run the towns while people are gone. They were trained to fight. There were, of course, famously shield maidens who would not always fight, but would assist in war and take part in raiding parties and stuff like that. Compared to the rest of Europe at the time, women's rights in the Viking era were pretty good, to be honest. They did pretty well for them. They could vote. They had a lot of this because they had a democracy too. A lot of them did. In these tribal towns, they had quite a direct democracy where you would vote on things, and people didn't approve, then it didn't happen. You would have, people in charge, but they were bound, and they could be thrown out if needs be. Then Christianity came. It wasn't all bad. I mean, it led to Norwegian unification, which a lot of people were very happy about. And it led to Norway being quite a powerful kingdom, and Sweden as well. Sweden was a very powerful kingdom for a short period of time. But yeah, wasn't all bad. Did him some favors, did less though. Again, there was a star, it was religion. That's your own opinion on how you feel about that. But it was a bit outdated at the period. How people did things, but each their own. And indeed, like most of Christianity, most people converted willingly. And in fact, Vikings were very keen to assimilate with people. You see this a lot throughout. I mean, in Constantinople, as we mentioned, but also during the Danelaw, and before the Danelaw, of course, you had a lot of Vikings in England and Ireland who settled in and just lived in England without any problem at all, and they were happy to become Christians, trade with Christians. In fact, during this period, it was actually banned for Christian people to trade with heathens. So what a lot of Vikings did is they just converted to Christianity. They weren't too fussed about religion so long as it benefited them, which, I respect the hustle. They were very eager to assimilate, and they often did without much problem. The Danelaw while it came as a result. Oh, I haven't actually told you what the Danelaw is. So there was a period where I believe it was 976. I want to say. Let me double check that. I'm not very good with Viking dates. Great Heathen Army. It was called Great Heathen Army. When was that? Oh, no, it was way before that. 865. I wonder what I was getting confused with there. So in 865, there was... Yeah, of course it wasn't that late, because right before... Whatever. I'm very silly sometimes. I do apologize. I'm human. I make mistakes. And I'm stupid. So, the Great Heathen Army, as it was called, was a massive invasion of Danish people up the north of England. They basically quite easily conquered a lot of England. At that period, England was not a single unified country. It was divided into four kingdoms. You had... Oh, here's a test of my knowledge. Northumbria, Wessex. What was the one? Mercia. And the other one, which I forget the name of. What was the other one? Was it Sussex? No, because that's like a... four... It's really obvious and I'm really stupid now. 4 kingdoms of England. East Anglia, that's the other one. It's because it's small and doesn't matter. Stupid country. But yeah, you had East Anglia as well. 4 different kingdoms. Northumbria was almost completely conquered. Mercia, which was in the centre of England, was largely conquered. And the king of Wessex, who you may know the name of, Alfred the Great. The Great comes from him managing to finally face off against this Great Heathen Army and actually defeat them. And as a result, that led to what is called the Danelaw, which was basically a truce. England was losing very badly. Alfred the Great managed to do a valiant last stand against them, faced off against them. Thank you very much for the follows and the bit. Oh, Numo! Thank you for the raid, my darling. You are back in school. Welcome to school, darling. Yujiro, hello, sweetie. Welcome. But yes, Alfred the Great, he repelled the Great Heathen Army and led to a truce, basically, which divided England in two. You had the Danelaw, which was controlled by the Danes, or were under special... It's complex. It was technically all England, but it was controlled by the Danes. Because the Danish people had settled there, basically, and they didn't want to get thrown out. So this was a land for English Vikings. And they assimilated very, very, very well. And their capital was the city of York. And the name York comes from the Viking name of Jorvik. So if you ever hear me call York Jorvik, it was called Jorvik for a very, very long time. But hi, lovely. Thank you, Raiders. We are learning. We're getting educated. But thank you, Fruitless, for the 100 bits. Very, very kind of you. In Vikings, I know Alfred and Ragnar were homies. They ended up getting along. Well, not really, but they had to. I want to tell you a bit about Rollo, too. Rollo's an interesting one. He's a bit later? Yeah, a bit later on. Actually, I can tell you about him very quickly. But yes, so that's an excellent time of Christian and heathen trade between the two, because these Christians weren't technically allowed to trade with the Vikings up in the Danelaw. So, as a compromise, a lot of the ones in the Danelaw converted, in quotation marks, to Christianity. And actually, Rollo's an excellent example of Vikings who converted to Christianity for convenience. Rollo was the founder of Normandy. He was the first Duke of Normandy, and as we know, the Duke of Normandy became a very powerful title, because that was where William the Conqueror came from. Rollo was the first Duke of Normandy, and he got that land because he and a very large army rocked up into Paris and literally kidnapped the King of France, which is very bold, certainly a bold strategy. And the treaty that they signed, the Treaty of Paris, guess which one? I believe there's like 100 treaties of Paris, but it's called the Treaty of Paris. He agreed that in exchange for marrying the king's daughter and becoming a Christian, he could have all of Normandy. And he said, all right, yeah, I'll become a Christian. And the validity of them becoming Christian, you'll see it. Apparently, on his deathbed, he renounced Christianity and prayed to the Astaru gods. So a lot of them probably didn't fully convert, but a lot did. It depends on the person. Vikings were a great range of different people from all sorts of backgrounds. But yeah, there you go. There's a bit on simulation. They invented a lot of things too. If you ever heard of a plumb bob, they invented that. It's how you check the depth of water in a boat, and they used it very heavily for navigation. It's how they knew where they were. That's how they were able to. They had their long ships, quite advanced craft. The era. They had masts that they could take down. They were lightweight, so they could be carried across land. Perfect for raiding, exploring, going long distances. They were excellent craft, and they were very talented explorers. So a little bit of interesting stuff about Vikings. I don't think the food is good. Yum 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 yum. Because a lot of things happen in Paris. It really was kind of the capital of Europe for a really long time, especially during the medieval period. I guess until the HRE came around, like France was the big one. France, weirdly enough, very ununified. A lot of people kind of get it wrong because there was the Kingdom of France, and it was a kingdom, but it was a lot like the HRE. It was very, very heavily delegated. A lot of people in England kind of mistake it for the English crown, which was very much, had a lot more authority under the English crown. But you'll see throughout history, in fact during the War of the Roses, which we might cover later, you see a lot of people go directly against the French crown and suffer very little consequences for it, because they weren't very unified. You have the Brittany, that's it. I always mix. Is it Brittany? Because there's Breton. Is that Brittany? Which is the other one? It was Brittany, wasn't it? No, I'm thinking of a different one. Hold on, give me a second. I want to look this up now. I have to check things sometimes. What was her name? War of the Roses. And it was Margaret of something, which starts with a V. Margaret of Anjou. Where did she come from? Anjou. Where is Anjou? Which state is that? Oh, is that just the whole ass state? Alright, give me the map. Yeah, you got Brittany. That's one of them. Was it Aquitaine? Why did I think it started with a B? Burgundy, that's the one. I was thinking of Burgundy. I'm really stupid. I'm so sorry. It did start. But yeah, Burgundy, for instance, was really heavily independent of the French crown, and they could basically do whatever the fuck they wanted, which is quite funny. But yes, France, very, very independent of each other. Not like England. Time for PA. I'm not doing the Scots right now. I'll do it at the end. I'll bank them, and we'll do them in a little bit. Done enough learning. This is literally a history stream. That's the entire point. Yeah, I'll do it later. You fucking bastards, ragey. Yes, I heard that story, Nell. Still not sure how true that is. Sorry, I wasn't reading chat very well before. I do apologise. New York inspired by York is a city in England. I think it's been York more recently. I think it's more inspired by York than Jorvik. But yes, love you. Mwah, 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 mwah. Sorry, I've been very bad at reading chat. Very naughty, very evil. Anyway, I think that's basically it on the old Vikings. Is there anything I wanted to mention that I have not? Vikings did the Danelaw, we did culture, trade, rank and guard. Never mentioned Linda's farm. Can mention the Kievan Rus. But let's talk about Hardrada quickly, because I didn't really tell you his story properly. I just kind of alluded to it. But, whoa, Foxcat teacher. Yep, that's me. What the heck is your name? What, Markin? Markin's based. Markin's cool. Hardrada has a really interesting story. So that's the fellow who invaded the north of England right at the start. For those who have been paying attention. Hardrada didn't actually start as the king of Norway. He was not the king of Norway until actually quite late into his life. Well, actually, he was decently... Yeah, okay, not that. His actual life, because he died very young. But, yes, he only took the kingdom of Norway can't remember exactly how many years, but very shortly before he tried to invade England. Because initially, he was thrown off his rightful, dubious, his claim to the throne, to the Kingdom of Normandy, by his brother. And his brother became the King of Norway. They start with an N, it's the same thing. But yes, so what he did, he was a fascinating person because he was a bit of an adventurer. And he thought, alright, well, I'm now banished from my home kingdom. What am I going to do? So, being a bit of an adventurer, him and his entourage, I suppose, sailed down towards Constantinople. And on the way, he stopped at Kiev, which was this Viking-founded city. And it was quite a prosperous city now. And he had a friend in Kiev. And that person would hold on to the money that he made. Because what Hardrada needed is he needed money to make an army. So, that friend would look after the money that Hardrada made, because he went down south to Constantinople, and he became a very important member of the Varangian Guard for a great period of time, and the Varangian Guard got paid very, very, very well. They're basically noblemen. The person hogging all the underscores is crazy. Oh dear. But yes, these noblemen, these Varangian guards were basically noblemen, and they got paid a lot of money for their work. So he was a member of the Varangian Guard for a very, very long time. Indeed, he partook in quite a lot of small conflicts that happened under the king of the Byzantine Empire at the time, who I forget the name of. But this was during a time of quite a lot of strife in the Byzantine Empire with the Seljuk Turks and what have you being right on the border. Quite tense. I can't remember exactly what battles he took part of. But either way, he was very well paid for it. And when he went back to Kiev, he had all this money banked away. And he used that money to raise an army. He sailed back to Norway, and he took on his brother in quite a major battle that happened on a lovely scenic fjord. You can go visit that site of battle, but I can't remember what it's called. But either way, took him on. Quite tense battle. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but similar sized armies, quite a decisive victory. His brother was killed during the battle, and as a result, Hardrada became the king of Norway. And not soon after, using the same money and the same army, basically, he began plotting to basically retake Scandinavia and what is previously the Danelaw, which is why he ended up invading the north of England. And who would come along to help him achieve that goal than Tostig, the brother of Harold Godwinson, which is why Tostig gets caught along in it, because he didn't really have a claim to the throne. Tostig did. So that's why he used Tostig. He was basically like, you help me, I help you, you give me your claim, or I'll satisfy your claim, I'll give you a duchy. I can't remember what he was promised. Quite a lot, probably. And you help me get support, you validate my claim, and I'll help you get, overthrow your brother. Speak louder, there's a road construction outside. Make me ragey. I'm talking quite loud. My mic's peeking into the red every now and again. I'm sorry. But yeah, Harold Hardrada, interesting guy. A lot more detail to his story that I just can't recall, I'm afraid. But still, cool guy. Alright, we've been going at this for a little while, but I still have a couple more subjects to talk about. One that I think will invite a decent bit of debate, and you could probably correct me on a few things, because I'm not, I'm not perfect, and a lot of people know an awful lot about this subject. But we are going to talk a little bit about interwar, World War II, and the Cold War, specifically on things that I want to talk about. I also want to tell you about some cool naval battles, because I like naval battles. I can tell you about Denmark Strait, North Cape, Operation Pedestal, which is awesome, Battle of Taranto, some of the cool. Yes, these are all British Navy stories. I know a lot about the British Navy. I'm sorry, but they're still very cool. Very interesting. I mean, I could probably tell you about Midway and stuff like that, but boring. Everyone knows about Midway. Everyone knows what happened at Midway. Right, guys? You know all of that. To be fair, I don't think I could do it at the same justice I can for, North Cape or whatever. Do you need a break? Not really. Well, yes, I do. I'm going to take a small not total break, but we're going to talk for a bit, hang out for 5 minutes or so before going on to the next topic. What else are we going to talk about? I want to talk a little bit about North Africa campaign. I want to talk a little bit about Operation Barbarossa. And then going on to talk about nuclear weapons, the Cold War, etc., etc. But yeah. Meow. How are we doing, Squishles? Feeling meow meow? Feeling oh wee wee wee? If you are not, please go away. No. How dare you not feel wee 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 right now in my presence? Meow meow meow. I'm gonna have another sip of meowster, and then I'm gonna have a sip of water. Multitasking. Yeah. Hey, you wanna come give me a cuddle? There you go. Hi. Wee wee wee. You're good? I'm glad you're good. I'm enjoying your company, chat. That's a fun old time. I'm enjoying getting to talk about something that I'm really interested in, even if it is a nice little exception from what is typical. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy your company so far. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about in history? Something they know a decent bit about during our little intermission period? I'm happy to hear some facts from you. I'm not, like I say, I'm not perfect at all. I just like to talk about what I like to talk about. Anyone got some interesting facts or history or periods from your home countries or anything you've learned about? I'd love to hear it. And maybe it'll jog my memory and I can give you a bit of extra stuff on it. My brain is rotted with Elder Scrolls lore. Don't get me going. I meant about history, you muppet. I would love to do a similar stream to this where we get some people on to talk about their interests as well, and we can like have a little back and forth conversation with some chatters. Could be cute. Any history that's fresh in my mind is the Swedish Vikings that have. We just talked about that, Hijiro. We just talked about the Kievan Rus. Yeah. We were talking about that when we were talking about Hardrada because he stayed in Kiev for a period of time. But yes, they are very interesting. Very interesting indeed. And that's what founded the city of Kiev. It's one of the oldest settlements in the Russian territory that is still around. There were still a lot of nomadic tribes in the area, but that's the first proper settlement. It was an excellent waypoint along the Volga for people to stop and rest and stay for a little bit, especially during winter. If you got caught out during winter, you could come stay at Kiev because it was a decent way to Constantinople. Or indeed, it ended up just becoming a pretty functional country in its own right. A lot of people went there for trade, to meet people. Cascade lessons, I'll throw a brick at you. Show and tell stream. That's what I was thinking. Something like that. Could be fun. Could be cute. Typically for like special streams, we've got the where are they? The sub goals up here. Like this was a sub goal. So the next one would be a TTRPG stream, and they're a nice like opportunity to try some special streams that I don't want to do too often. To be fair though, the TTRPG stream will be an experiment. If you guys fucking love TTRPG streams, when I try it, I might do more of them because I like running campaigns. It's fun. So we'll do a one shot for that one, but if we do it, I might run an actual campaign on stream, which could be cozy. Are you comfy, Spearman? Cutie pie. Anyway. Who's ready to talk about the thing that everyone already knows everything about? World War II and the Cold War. And the interwar period, a little bit, a smidge. But it's still fun to talk about. How do you even start on World War II? Like, I mostly want to talk about naval battles. I suppose you don't need the by that I gave you for the start of World War I, because, it's, most people know how World War II started, I'll give you a quick overview for those who aren't super familiar. So, all started, obviously, I can actually give you a bit of interwar period some people don't know about. Most people's understanding is that they know Hitler came into power, they might know about Czechoslovakia as it was, they might know about the Anschluss, stuff like that. They might not know what came before that. Indeed, it didn't help, obviously, but before before Hitler came into power, an interesting thing about the Treaty of Versailles. A lot of people don't know what kind of happened as a result of the Treaty of Versailles and why the Weimar Republic struggled so much. You've got hyperinflation, you've got the French occupation of the Ruhr, which is a really dick move by them. What happened with the French occupation? Oh, hello, it's the most Wilco thing I've ever seen outside one of your streams. Well, it's just Cascade lessons. Oh yeah, he's fucking mental, he is. Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter too much. But yeah, so, let's talk about the French occupation of Iraq, because I think that's one thing that's less known about. So, after the hyperinflation, or well, during the hyperinflation, we're still kind of feeling the consequences of it. What happened is a way to kind of combat this massive hyperinflation that was happening. The German state, the Weimar Republic, did not pay its reparations to France. Which, you know, that was what they were told to do under the Treaty of Versailles. They had put in strategies in place to combat this. You had the Young Plan, and you had a plan before it, which I forget the name of, but, yeah, Young Plan's the famous one, that was helping deal with it, but I believe that came in afterwards? I can't remember. Because there was another plan in place before the Young Plan. I can't remember exactly when the swap over happened. Doesn't matter too much. But part of that, to get it reduced, was bending the rules of the treaty a little. And what they thought they could get away with, because Germany had promised its veterans a lot of money that had been wiped out by this hyperinflation, they basically were like, okay, we'll compensate you. We need to bring this down, so we're just not going to pay reparations this year. What France did, to fuck Germany over even more, because they weren't already on their fucking knees, is they occupied the Ruhr, the demilitarized zone of Germany in the Rhineland, which, as you may know, later on in the future, Hitler reoccupies the Rhineland. But yes, France, that was basically a buffer zone, and France, as part of the Treaty of Versailles, took the Ruhr, basically took it over and said, you know, until you pay us our reparations, we are occupying this part of Germany. And what Germany did, which got them even deeper in the hole, and it really fucked them over and made the hyperinflation even worse, was that they said, alright, well, we've got a lot of German people here that work for the government. Right now, we can't pay them directly. So, what they said is they basically piled on a fuck ton of debt. And they said, you guys keep working, and when this is over, we'll pay you all the money for your wages and more. You know, and that did them no favors at all. But they didn't really have a choice. You know, that would lead, if people stopped working there, that would lead to the collapse of the German heartland. You know, that is where all their industry was. That's where all the money for Germany came in through, is that area. And France, you know, occupying it completely fucked Germany over. So, you know, a lot of people think that the resentment is purely from the Treaty of Versailles that led up to World War II, but it was a lot more fresh in people's minds. There are lots of things that France did that really upset the Germans. So when you think, oh, you know, like, it was only the Treaty of Versailles, they had to pay a bit more money, you know, stop Germany from getting military. It was actually quite severe. Will is German. I don't think he is. Yeah, the Ruhr occupation is what we're talking about right now. But yeah, so I guess that's just a bit of preface to kind of understand why there was so much resentment towards I mean, there was a lot of stuff from the Treaty of Versailles, and of course this all knocks on from the Treaty of Versailles. Treaty of Versailles, terrible fucking idea, because of course World War II was going to happen because of this. Like, hindsight's 2020, but yeah, it wasn't great. France really pushed for the Treaty of Versailles to be as brutal as possible. Britain was kind of in the middle, and the US, who also had a big say in it, were like, eh. And to be honest, in hindsight, the US were probably right. They kind of saw it coming with what ended up happening, is that it would really not help Germany in the slightest. And in World War II, you'll see, with the splitting up of Germany after World War II, and what the approach between East and West Germany, you can see the lessons learned from World War I and the lack of denazification happened, but there was not a long-term punishment for Germany. You know, and as a result, instead, they worked with this new government in West Germany, and as a result, it absolutely flourished in the 50s, 60s, etc. It recovered from the war faster than any other country. That could have been World War One, but it wasn't, unfortunately, and that's, you know, just one of the mistakes of history that led to a good few million people dying, as it happens. Hate when that happens, you know, just casual mistake. Oopsie, a few million people dead. But yes. Anyway, where did I kind of went a bit off topic talking about the West Germany. Oh yes, the interwar period. So got that leading up. Interesting fact about you know about Operation Barbarossa. You know about the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. If you don't, that is the treaty that was signed between Russia and Germany to invade Poland. A lot of yeah. So I don't know how much I'm talking about is like really obvious to people, because like sometimes I will say something and people are like, huh? So I don't know how common knowledge this is, but yeah. So at the start of the war, in the invasion of Poland, it wasn't just Germany that invaded. Germany invaded first, then Russia rolled in and met at the border, at a predefined border. But yeah, Russia ended up being our allies, but that's only because they got betrayed by the Nazis during Operation Barbarossa. But Russia wasn't part of the war until 41. So yeah, interesting there. Not sure how much people know about that, but yeah. But part of their mingling wasn't left just to the Ribbentrop Pact. They actually had quite close relations, weirdly enough, because they are what helped get past the Treaty of Versailles. That is how Germany trained a lot of their air force. Russia actually had a treaty with, well, an agreement, you know, under wraps with Germany, where as part of the way that the Germans got past all the military restrictions is they had pilots trained and planes built in Russia. So before the war even started, the Germans and the Russians were collaborating on helping Germany, which, uh-oh, not nice. Oh, hey, sweetie. Meow, meow. Hi, Majesty, nice to see you. Where's Sylvain? You said, hey, Sylv. Things happen, whoopsie, teacher talk. I'm giving you teacher talk right now. I'm sorry that I'm not, like, you know, doing squats and giving you mummy. I mean, I can give you mummy talk. Oh well. Oh well. You paying attention, class? You being cute? You're listening? You swaying your little ears? Doing little sways? I hope you find it interesting. I hope that you've learnt at least one thing during this, and you haven't just been staring at my boobies the whole time, which, you know, I don't entirely trust you. I feel it. Yes, you too, darling. Yes, mummy. Meow, meow, meow. I mean, yes, miss, right? Right? Oh, keeps lagging sometimes, which frightens me. I feel like everything's about to crash. Pion pion. Hey, Tori. Hey, sweetie. Meow, meow. Anyway, yes, miss mummy is crazy. Anyway. So, I don't want to talk too much about the interwar period. It is interesting. Of course, you know, especially the Japanese invasion of China. That actually, it's funny, a lot of people attribute the start of World War II to be the invasion of Poland. But actually, 2 years prior, was it 2 years? Was it 3 years? I can't remember. Prior, Japan had invaded China, and that ends up becoming the Pacific Theater, you know. But that because it's not, because those wars are separate until America comes in, it's like, because Germany and Japan were technically allies, but like barely. There were some military, you know, conflicts beforehand with British-occupied areas in the Pacific, but like that was not a major theater until America came in. Let me correct myself. No, India, of course. Sorry, that's a terrible thing that a lot of British people do, including myself. The Indian theater was actually quite major. I don't believe, yeah. I don't know when, yeah, that's the thing that I criminally am unaware of. But yes, actually there was quite a lot of fighting over, well, by Indian soldiers over these British Isles in the Pacific and British islands, British territories, and in, indeed, there were I can't remember if forces were provided directly to China at any point. I think there were some volunteer forces sent to China. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the war continued for a very long time. It's funny, actually, during that period, so with China, China was actually in the midst of civil war before that war happened. Interesting fact. I'm not sure how many of you know that. There was a small territory up north of China that was Communist China. Communist China did exist during this period, but they actually had a ceasefire when Japan invaded, and they fought, perhaps not friendly, but they fought alongside each other against Japan. And yeah, that ceasefire remained until the end of World War II. A few years after, they began the war again, and that was the war against China. And then, obviously, as you know, the Communist China won, and then the original China was allowed to exist in Taiwan, and that's the whole Taiwan and China thing. Is that, you know, that's the old government of China that's still technically around. To be honest, it's interesting because at the time, the reason China didn't want to invade Taiwan is just because it wasn't worth the time. But now it's a real fucking thorn in their backside. Probably, like, not that I'm saying that they should, but for their own sake, I feel like it's caused more problems than it would have been for them had they invaded it. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm not exactly pro-China, but from a tactical perspective, they just didn't bother. They didn't think it was going to be as big a problem for them as it ended up being with its continued existence. Anyway, sorry, that was a massive tangent. Holy moly. Yeah, Barbarossa is interesting. I feel like a lot of you know what happened. You know, France got defeated quite badly. There was a retreat at Dunkirk. British forces withdrew, left a lot of French armies behind. Free France remained in Africa and what have you. But yeah, everything was a bit of a stalemate for a period of time. Barbarossa happened in 1941. That is where the Germans betrayed Russia. The Soviet Union, I should probably be calling it the Soviet Union, it's not just Russia. Oh, hello, Dustlow. And they made the big push, which ended up being their demise. They made a big push into Russia, had some initial success, but were completely bogged down, lost a few major engagements, a lot of brutal fighting, and of course, as you know, Stalingrad, major loss for the Germans. That's when it all turned around. Interesting fact, and something I want to address, is Stalingrad, while largely, symbolic, wasn't the only reason they were pushing that way. At this period, when Stalingrad happened, the Germans were running out of fuel. A lot of you know this, the Germans had a major fuel crisis. This is because before, in the lead up to World War II, the Germans wanted to achieve autarky, which is a self-reliance, because beforehand they were importing lots of fuel. They knew when this war happened, they would not be able to sustain themselves unless they achieved autarky. They never managed to do that, mostly because they were stupid, and they did not have a good economist in place. They focused on military spending instead of civil spending, and their economy did not grow fast enough. This, as a result, led to the Germans not having any fuel, or not having much fuel. They had the synthetic fuel, which was not very effective. That's why a lot of their tanks broke down an awful lot and vehicles. This synthetic fuel was a bit shit. What was in Russia, in the Caucasus, and towards the way of Stalingrad, if you imagine, there's a bit of a spearhead towards Stalingrad. To the south, there's all the oil. If they can take Stalingrad, that blocks off a lot of Russian forces and basically separates out all these oil fields down south. That is why they were pushing that way, and why they didn't just bum rush Leningrad and Stalingrad, and well, actually Leningrad is a whole different thing, but they Moscow, that's the word. It's because they needed that oil down south, and they knew it. They knew it because they were running out. If they could have taken that, might have gone a different way. They probably still would have lost, but they would have had a large oil supply, which could have kept them fighting for a lot longer. So it's a good thing they did lose at Stalingrad. But at the same time, now the USA's come in. We're in 44 with D-Day, obviously, and then they're getting pushed back. And everything's on the on the fritz. Everything's going wrong. Noobs, Lamau. Sorry, I'm terrible. I keep getting really lost in this. I've not been brilliant at reading chat. I do apologize. But literally and metaphorically running out. Yeah, metaphorically too. Yeah, you are absolutely right. The loss at Stalingrad was a huge hit to German morale. Hitler was very adamant that they had to win that, and as a result, lost multiple major armies in that. They got encircled, wiped out, all of them. That is the biggest single hit the Germans took in losses is during Stalingrad. Not that the Russians didn't suffer for it too. It was a very brutal battle. But as you can see, it had to be won, because if the Russians were if the Germans were able to take those oil fields, then the war would have gone on a lot longer. Not that they would have won. A lot of people claim if they could have claimed the oil fields, it could have turned in Germans' favor. Not with America. Russia was a significant force, but it had been worn down by lots and lots of fighting for a very long time. America was fresh. They'd been militarizing, they'd been preparing for war for a good period of time now. Personally, this is going to be a controversial opinion that people might not agree with. I think America should have joined the war sooner. In a moral sense. I think a lot of Americans are very keen to be we won the war, we helped win World War II. And, I think they only did that because they had to. Before that, they were pretty happy to let German atrocities get past. And I don't know. That's just a strong personal feeling I have, is that I feel like America should have taken a step up, because they ended up in a war anyway. And I feel like they should have known that with Japan, they should have expected some sort of reprise. Because Pearl Harbor wasn't a complete surprise. Japan had been aggressive to American vessels before. This was not the first time that Japan had actually attacked America. They attacked previously an American civilian vessel that had been sunk, and that caused a lot of controversy, and that was a lot of calls to go to war with Japan from that. And I think at that point they should have known that Japan's, they were aware of the atrocities happening in China. They're aware that Japan had strong imperialist goals. I think America should have joined the war then. But yes, that's beside the point. That's me going on a tangent. Either way, Stalingrad, very major battle. After that, Germans got pushed back heavily. It was a losing streak from there. Who here has ever seen Downfall? Who's seen Downfall, the movie? If you have not, you should watch it. It's brilliant. It is one of the most historically accurate movies I have ever seen. It has flaws. Of course it does, but it is so well acted. It is such a good story. The fundamental, most important parts that are depicted there are all very, very accurate. There are minor details that are slightly wrong, but it does not matter. It's a brilliant, brilliant movie. If you have not seen it, you should, because it's very good. Have you ever seen the meme of Hitler going 99999? That's from that movie. It's really good. It's in German. Watch it with subtitles. Brilliant movie. Would approve. The last days fighting out in Berlin were miserable. Funny story from Berlin, which I really find interesting. The zookeeper for the German the Berlin Zoo. Did you know that to keep the animals safe, Berlin was getting hit by artillery from Russian forces. It was getting bombarded completely. To keep the animals safe in the zoo, you want to know what the zookeeper did? He took them home. He kept as many zoo animals as he possibly could, and he kept them in his home. And as a result, a lot of the zoo animals survived the attack on Berlin, because he was also scared of starving people coming to eat them, which didn't happen. I can't remember if there were reports of cannibalism. I don't think the battle lasted long enough, but people got very hungry during that war because Berlin got completely encircled. There was not much hope of getting supplies in and out. But yeah, it's one of the few nice stories that came out of the Battle of Berlin. There weren't many nice ones, I'm going to be honest. Most of them are very, very bleak. There was, at this point, the German army was in complete disarray. They had completely collapsed from all sides, and it's kind of shown in Downfall, like I say. Downfall, brilliant movie. They were resorting to children, old people, infirms, anyone, and if you refused to fight to defend Berlin, you would be hanged. It was brutal. It was really, really brutal. The Hitler Youth were conscripted. They would carry these very cheap rocket launchers, which I forget the name of, to take out tanks. And as a result, the Russians were already being brutal. They'd been fighting for years. But because now civilians were fighting them too, it led to just a complete and utter massacre. Very, very, very brutal battle. Very nasty one to read accounts for. Another very brutal battle during World War II is the Battle of Leningrad. That was a big siege around Leningrad, major city, one of the biggest in Russia at the time. And people were starving to death, and there were lots of reports of cannibalism. Very brutal. Very brutal. Anyway, I think those are most of the things I wanted to talk about. I kind of want to touch on the North Africa campaign. But, I wanted to talk about some interesting naval battles. Who likes big boats? Who's interested in hearing some naval battles that are particularly interesting? Who here's heard of the Bismarck? Or, by extension, the Scharnhorst? I feel like less people have heard of the Scharnhorst, but that's another interesting one. We're going to talk about Denmark Strait, North Cape, and probably a bit about Operation Pedestal. So I'm not sure how many of you know about Malta, the Siege of Malta. That is a really, really cool battle, because it's a bit against the odds, to be honest. It's a really nice bit of defiance with this little island called Malta. Lovely country. Campaign of North Africa videos soon. Oh, don't make me start becoming a history VTuber, darling. I'll cry. But yes, Pedestal's one of my favourite stories, but I want to talk quickly about Denmark Strait and North Cape and the Hunt for Bismarck as well, which comes after Denmark Strait. I've decided to skip German lessons today. I'm sorry. I mean, all of these are stories from the British Navy. I'm so sorry. I know. I'm terrible. Could probably tell you a bit about Midway. Whatever, naval. Yeah, not many. I mean, Taranto's against the Italians. You don't see the Italians show up in many war conversations because they didn't do very well, especially after Taranto. That just crippled their navy. Learning the language. Oh, so you're listening to me instead. Well, there you go. My friend's grandpa fought in the Battle of Berlin. On what side? Plink, plink. Soviet. Interesting. Oh yeah, cool, because you're Polish. Ah, very interesting. I mean, that's still a bit of a plink plink. I wouldn't want to ask what he did there. But interesting. I said plink plink, not plap plap. Don't plap your teacher, unless she asks very nicely. But yeah, Denmark Strait, really interesting battle. Who knows what happened during the Battle of Denmark Strait? Anyone got a clue? Who knows what the Battle of Denmark Strait is? Has anyone ever heard of it in any context? Hello, Owen. Nice to see you. Hey. Meow. You would ask nicely, though. I might do, if you pay attention in my class. It's a battle. Yes, spot on. Well done. No one too sure? That's fine. You get to learn a new thing today. Boats sank. Boats did sink. Do you remember which boat in particular? Quite famous. One of the more famous losses of a major ship during the war. Quite a famous boat sunk, right? Not Bismarck. Bismarck did take part, but it was not the ship that sunk. It is a different ship that sunk during Denmark Strait. Bismarck sunk after Denmark Strait. Not long after, because this sinking on the British side made them very upset, shockingly. And Bismarck did not get any reprieve from that. So I'm drinking a Meowster while you discuss amongst each other. But you are right, that is a battle that Bismarck took part in. It was Princess something. I can see where you're getting that from. That was a ship that took part. So, Battle of Denmark Strait was a battle between 2 versus 2. It was the Prinsenwagen and Bismarck. those were the 2 German ships, and the ship that sunk was the HMS Hood, which was the pride of the British Navy. It was a very old ship at the time, but it had fought in World War One. It was very, very well liked, very popular. That was it wasn't the flagship, but this is our boat. This is the Navy's boat, HMS Hood. Very famous, very beloved. And it was also, where you're getting Princess, is a HMS Prince of Wales, which was a KGV class ship. It was old and new. The KGV class was a... Was it KGV class? Yeah, it was Prince of Wales. Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking it might be Nelson. No. KGV class, and which was brand new. Cool ship. I like KGV ships. But also the very old World War One battle cruiser that was Hood. Joom would love this class. Who's Joom? You can always watch this VOD if you're interested. Does he like history? One would hope that you like history. But yeah. Joom's a fellow we have in common. Interesting. And he likes history. Cute. Well, anyway, let's tell you a bit about Denmark Strait. So, a bit of background behind the Bismarck's construction and how this battle came to be. So, the Bismarck was, the Kriegsmarine was a very weak navy compared to Britain, which was its primary competition at the time. The construction of the Bismarck was an attempt to rectify that. 2 battleships had previously been constructed, Scharnhorst and Gneisenau. They had been relatively successful in surface raiding. So the policy that the Germans had is they focused largely on U-boat construction, submarines. These boats would raid supplies into the Atlantic. Britain, at the time, was on the edge. It was besieged by Germany, basically. France had fallen. Things were bad. Americans had not yet joined the war. They had not joined the war yet. This was just preluding to Operation Barbarossa, which is actually where a lot of these things start to go wrong, is a transfer of funds from naval capacity to the ground invasion in Russia. But this was before that. But we have these 2 new battleships that have seen relative success. They support the U-boats that have been raiding supplies coming from America into Britain to keep Britain fighting. They've had good success. This war in Atlantic is the Germans' current policy. This is how they're going to starve out Britain, is raiding ships coming in and out of Britain. Has my music stopped? Great, yeah. So, the Germans continue with their construction. Bismarck is constructed, but a sister ship, the Tirpitz, is not yet done construction. So, instead, they send a heavy cruiser to join Bismarck. They want to get Bismarck straight out the shipyard and raiding surface fleets over in the Atlantic. Merchant fleets even, over in the Atlantic. So they send the Bismarck with the Prinz Eugen, which is a heavy cruiser. Slightly smaller than a battleship, still relatively powerful ship. So, what happens is almost as soon as Bismarck left the port. The reason why... Sorry, I know I'm going to go into quite a lot of detail about this because I know this battle inside and out. Primary competition was France. France had fallen right now. This is the period where the only combatant is England and some of the Free France stuff in Africa. But in Europe, the only combatant, England. So, what had happened is that Eric Raeder, is it Eric Raeder? Is that the captain or is that the leader of the Kriegsmarine? I can't remember. Eric Raeder. Eric Raeder. He was in fact the admiral. He was the admiral. Yeah, okay, that was the guy in charge, yeah. I was making sure I didn't confuse him with the captain. Who was the captain of the Bismarck then? Captain of Bismarck. Sorry. Trying to remember names. Ernst Lineman. There you go. Got his name. Anyway, Eric Raeder, he obviously knew the German battle plan. He knew that Barbarossa was coming. He did not want to wait for Tirpitz to finish construction before, showing the effectiveness of the Kriegsmarine. So, to show it off, he wanted to show the power of Bismarck. So, this new kind of top-of-the-line ship, a lot of people say it's a very powerful ship. It had flaws, and we will see those flaws show themselves during this battle. But Eric Raeder sent out the Bismarck with Prinz Eugen not very long after leaving port. When they were passing by England, the Bismarck was captured on camera by a reconnaissance Spitfire, who got a very good photo of them. Clear skies, excellent. They know that the Bismarck, this brand new ship, has been sent out to continue surface raiding, while they knew that the Scharnhorst and Gneisenau had returned to port. They weren't about. Excellent. This is a single battleship all by itself. So, as a response, the North Sea, not North Sea, the Northern British Navy, I can't remember what they're called, but basically a very big fleet that protected the Atlantic up north, they deployed two battleships, which was the HMS Hood and the HMS Prince of Wales. Those ships went to intercept the Bismarck. Now, during the period before the engagement begun, what had actually happened, and this will be important later, is Bismarck's radar had started to malfunction. It was having problems, and the Bismarck couldn't trust it as much. So what they had is they actually swapped places with the Prinz Eugen. The Prinz Eugen used its radar to navigate better. So I can't remember if it was sonar or radar. One of them broke. Either way, your granddad was in the Navy. Sadly, you never got to meet them. Oh, that's a shame. Big, powerful shippies. Indeed, indeed, indeed. So they swapped places. So bear in mind, Spitfires taken a photo of the Bismarck leading the group. Now it is the Prinz Eugen, that is leading the group. Now, when the engagement actually happens, this is the Battle of Denmark Strait. It happened. I don't know why it's called Denmark Strait. I guess it's because did Denmark own Greenland back then? I guess it did. I don't know the history of Denmark owning Greenland, but this was between Iceland and Greenland. That's Denmark Strait there. Love Spitfires. Spitfires are very cool. It was the fire control radar went wrong after Denmark Strait. You are right that it did malfunction. That malfunction happened as a result of the main cannons of the Bismarck not being properly calibrated. And what happened is the blast from these very powerful guns actually damaged the fire control radar. And that's actually what ended up being its downfall, which we will cover later. You are right, though. It did get damaged. But this was even before then that it was having problems. As we say, the Bismarck had many, many problems. A lot of them, very problematic. Okay, maybe you're right. I'm not sure. I remember hearing that it happened during Denmark Strait, but you might be right. Either way, beside the point. So, when the engagement did happen, you have HMS Hood, HMS Prince of Wales, engaging with the Bismarck. They're head-on, Bismarck, engaging like this. So Bismarck, Eugen moving like this. They're engaging from the side. Now, first few salvos between the two, the KGV is actually shooting at the wrong ship. This is where things are going slightly wrong. The KGV is shooting at the Eugen, which is quite a major mistake because they're very different ships. I don't know how they mistook it. It was a long distance, but still. So they're shooting at the Eugen, whereas the Hood is actually shooting at the correct target, which is the Bismarck. The Bismarck and the Eugen actually managed to fire at the same target. They prioritize HMS Hood, which is up the front. And not very long into the battle at all. We don't know which ship did the killing blow, but something hits the Hood. It hits the magazine rack, and the ship explodes. Almost everyone, I believe, barring 4 people, die on the HMS Hood. The ship completely detonates. Bro, is that kid in class? It's fine. Hello, Crocodile. Hey, sweetie pie. Nice to see you. And yeah, the Hood is obliterated, and this is two extremely sad news. A ship like the Hood was beloved by the British people, and this was the pride of the Royal Navy. It had been a ship that had served for a very long time. While there were better ships out there, it had always been the ship, that is beloved by people. So obviously this was a very tragic thing. The Prince of Wales, immediately after seeing this, disengages. And the Bismarck and Eugen are free to continue on. They have suffered no major damage, barring some light damage caused by themselves from the blast. The Bismarck has not had any time to do any proper testing. This is a live test. So, thus begins the hunt for Bismarck. The Bismarck is lost track of, and yeah, the Prince of Wales limps home now without a hood to how did I get here? I don't know. But welcome, it's lovely to have you here. So, this is a pretty significant period. The Prince of Eugen actually will go on to survive the war, because what happens during this hunt is the Prince of Eugen and the Bismarck split off from each other. The Prince of Eugen heads home, hoping to lose the tail that they have now gained. They have HMS Ark Royale. Was it Ark Royale? You seem to know a lot about this, Nariko. Was it Ark Royale? I'm pretty sure it was. Now pursuing the Bismarck, as well as a large fleet of destroyers, all coming to bully it. And here we see the beloved swordfish. The swordfish. I love the swordfish so much because it is a funny plane. It is so shit and so terrible that it was actually very effective. You'll see this in the Battle of Taranto too. It is really hard to hit because it flies at like 2 miles per hour. It is a very slow plane that somehow stays in the air despite being extremely slow. And it makes it actually very hard to hit with anti-aircraft cannons. But when the Ark Royale finally catches up with the Bismarck, it is basically strafed by planes, attacked by planes. It has taken a few hits over time, and the blow that does it in from these swordfishes is, and also of course the fire control radar had been damaged before, which we mentioned previously. The blow that does it in is a swordfish torpedo, hits the rudder of the Bismarck. Yes, the Norfolk and the Suffolk trail it, they find it, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then Ark Royale wanders up, gives it a kiss on the rudder, and then it's dead in the water. The Bismarck's rudder gets completely jammed, and it starts going in little circles around and around and around and around and around, completely paralyzed. And from there, it is bombarded by constant swordfish attacks. It gets hit by many, many, many torpedoes, and eventually it sinks, and it is dead. Oh, did it? I never heard. I knew they took light damage, but I never heard that it was a hole in the fuel tank. Interesting. See, you know a decent bit about this. It's nice. Nice to have some help. I don't mind being corrected on things because I'm not perfect. You're into it? I'm glad you're into it. You fell asleep 8 hours ago. Well, good morning to you, darling. Imagine falling asleep and waking up in a history lesson. Oh, I bet you fell asleep during Numo's raid. Thank you for the follow, though. Lovely to have you here. Hey, sweetie. So, yeah, the Bismarck is sunk. It is lost. And there you go. There's the most powerful German ship, allegedly. Well, I guess I would call it the most powerful. There was the Tirpitz, but that never even got to sink a ship. Got fucking bombed in port, the poor sod. But yes, the Bismarck was sunk. There you go. That is the fall of the Bismarck. Prince of Eugen went on to survive the war. And in fact, do you want to know how the Prince of Eugen sunk? It's a very interesting tale. It didn't sink during World War II. It sunk because it got fucking nuked. The American military came into possession of the Prince of Eugen, and they used it for a very famous test of a nuclear weapon at the old Bikini Atoll. You may have heard of the Bikini Atoll nuclear test. Yes, they put a bunch of ships in different radiuses of a nuclear weapon, and they set off a nuclear bomb and nuked the Prince of Eugen alongside a bunch of other old warships and civilian tankers and what have you. So yes, quite the interesting fate for the Prince of Eugen. It survived the war and got nuked. Interesting story. You might hear there's a sister ship of the Prince of Eugen called the Admiral something. Give me a second. I'm so forgetful with names sometimes. Sorry, I'm so stupid. There you go. Let's look at it quickly. Yep, that's the ship. What was it originally called? Teehee. Oh, is it, am I wrong? Am I stupid? Huh. Maybe I am stupid. I could have sworn. Ah. Where did I get that information from then? How quaint. Sorry, this is me being really stupid. I'm looking something up now. Yeah. Weird. Okay, never mind. Ignore that fact. It was completely wrong. I had gaslit myself into thinking something. What the hell? Whack. All right. Hi, chat. Sorry, I'm back after having a moment. No. I was thinking. I wasn't talking about the Gunai's now. I was talking about the Prince of Eugen's sister ship, which was the Admiral. I can't remember what it's called. But that's not what I'm thinking of because I was completely wrong. Who told me that then? I feel like that's something my history teacher taught me, and I feel like he must have taught me the wrong thing because I think he got a bit confused in telling me it. I was gonna say that the Admiral the Belgrano, which got sunk during the Falklands, I was told that used to be a German ship. It was not. It was the USS Phoenix, which is still interesting. But I thought it was a German ship that got taken by the US and then given to Argentina. And I thought it was the Prince of Eugen's sister ship. But apparently that's completely wrong. It just used to be the USS Phoenix. So there you go. To use this fact. You're welcome. My granddad was at the Second Battle of Narvik. Oh, very interesting. I don't know much about that battle, but that is a very, very cool that is cool. That's the one that was fought in the fjords, right? Again, I think it was against that ship, wasn't it? That's the what was the other ship called? What was the German ship called in that one? Where was this at? The Belgrano got sunk during the Falklands by HMS Conqueror. Was it Conqueror? It was a Churchill class, yeah, HMS Conqueror. That was a big controversy because apparently, I say it's justified, and so does the Admiral of the Belgrano. So I believe him. But the ship was leaving, well, positioned to leave the combat zone. There was a designated area where ships would be engaged around the Falklands, and it was leaving that combat zone. So technically it shouldn't be engaged based on that, but previously it had turned around, so that's why it was engaged and sunk. Anyway, that's beside the point. Deutschland, that's yeah. I think I was thinking of Grafsby. Oh no, yeah, I think it was the Deutschland I was thinking of. Yeah, the Lutzlow. I think that's the one I was thinking of, but I think I was completely wrong, so I'm stupid. Anyway, sorry, we've got a massive tangent there. Admiral Hipper. Oh, I might have been thinking Admiral Hipper. That's the one I was thinking of. Thank you. Sorry, I don't think that was a. Yeah, Admiral Hipper was the one I was thinking of. Thank you, darling. Yeah. Admiral Hipper was the one I was thinking of. That was the one that was sunk at Narvik, though, wasn't it? I think I was getting mixed up there. That was Admiral Hipper, still. We're doing research together here, darlings. Admiral Hipper. Thinking. I'm trying to remember which destroyer. There's a lot to remember here. Oh no, that was sunk with the Gunai's now. Which one am I thinking of? It was sunk at Narvik then. Maybe I'm stupid. Sorry for being late. I forgive you, my darling. Anyway, that's beside the point. You want a quick summary of North Cape? That's how the Scharnhorst was sunk. So North Cape, I'll give it to you really simple because I want to talk about Operation Pedestal. So North Cape, interesting one. If you have ever been to London, you will know of. Well, hopefully you would know. You would have seen the big county class destroyer. Cruiser, even, that is outside by London Bridge. That is HMS. What? How have I forgotten that name? Oh, my brain's so fried today. What the fuck? HMS. I even know what town it's named after, but I've forgotten the town's fucking name. Why am I saying Belfast? Oh my goodness me. Alright, HMS Belfast. Fuck me. I've been talking for so long. I'm so sad. Fuck this. Oh, your internet's dying. It's okay. There will be a VOD. Don't you worry. Don't you worry, darling. HMS Belfast took a major role during this battle. I really like it. Scharnhorst was out by itself in the North Cape, which is just north of Russia, and it was engaged by a group of ships. I forget exactly what ships were there, but it took a few fires. It was the dead of night, and HMS Belfast, when the Scharnhorst retreated, thinking that it was a battleship. I can't remember which battleship. Britain had so many battleships. It was pursued because the Scharnhorst returned fire on the pursuers. The battleship that was pursuing it previously returned fire because it was the dead of night. The Belfast and the Suffolk, I believe it was, pursued the Scharnhorst alone. Now, the Scharnhorst would be an easy match for those, but they had absolute... Was it the KGV? Was it the KGV? HMS Punjabi collided against KGV, tearing it in half. Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, during this battle, quite bravely, those two cruisers pursued the Scharnhorst until reinforcements could show up. But because it was the dead of night, the Scharnhorst still thought it was being pursued by a battleship that had been heavily damaged. They didn't realise that at all. So the Belfast got a little lucky that it didn't engage with it sooner, because it didn't know. So the Belfast followed behind. Eventually, when reinforcements did arrive, it fired illumination shells, which are big phosphorus shells that illuminate the entire area, and allowed the Scharnhorst to be engaged and sunk. That's an interesting story behind the Belfast there. Hard to focus on the lesson sometimes. I wonder why. Why are you getting distracted? Anyway, that was just a little side tangent. I want to talk about Operation Pedestal, because that's a really, really cool one. Nariko, do you know about Operation Pedestal? Is that one you're familiar with? You are very easily distracted though, Tori, to be fair. To be fair to you, my darling, you're a silly little sausage. Meow, meow, meow. Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, tonnage-wise, the most successful ships. Yeah, I could imagine that. They did very well. As I was saying before Bismarck was launched, they'd had an extremely successful campaign in the Atlantic doing surface raiding. That's why they were so keen to get the Bismarck out there, because the Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, they needed their repairs, they needed to be maintained because they'd been out there for ages, and they were having such success that getting the Bismarck, getting another battleship out there, would have been very good for them. But unfortunately for them, that didn't happen. The Bismarck got sunk. Tee hee. Too familiar with British ships? That is fine. Stinky. Thanks for the nice story. I'll be leaving now. See you around, Snowmark. Thanks for checking in with us today. It's been really nice. Guys, I fell asleep. Should spank you for that. How dare you? Meow, meow, meow. Anyway, Operation Pedestal, really interesting. There's a lot of detail I could go into this. I think we've been going at it for a while, but I think this will be our last major story. We'll have a little conversation at the end, don't you worry. But Operation Pedestal is one of my favourite naval stories, because it concerns the Battle of Malta. So, Malta, small little island, middle of the Mediterranean. If you know where the Mediterranean is, I hope you do. It is surrounded by, well, it's right next to Italy. Of course, got Germany there. The Mediterranean was vital to be controlled because it is where all the supplies for the North Africa campaign came through. And that was a very major campaign. Lots of British-held territory, Free France, all down in Africa, and all the supplies from Europe were all coming through the Mediterranean. Now, the Germans and the Italians had almost complete control for a period of time over this area. The Mediterranean fleet could not overextend itself. There was a British Mediterranean fleet. it was very vulnerable because of the air control, the naval control, but it did not have complete control, and that is why Malta was important. Malta had a very large airbase. Despite being a small little island, it was a very major port, a very major airbase that the RAF controlled. They used that to bomb supply ships on their way to fund the North Africa campaign. Supply the North Africa campaign. Mediterranean, yeah, pizza. Of course. Malta is a lovely place, also. But for this campaign, Malta was under siege. It was being bombed. It was being bombarded. It was on its last legs. That's where Operation Pedestal comes in. Malta was running out of supplies. Most importantly, it was running out of fuel. And without fuel, the RAF could not continue harassing German ships in the Mediterranean. This is where a massive, the largest convoy ever put together was assembled. A huge contingent of merchant ships and battleships. I couldn't tell you all of them, and carriers too. Oh, no. The great carry there. But I'll give it to you brief. A lot of things went wrong on the way, but absolutely they needed to get these supplies into Malta, no matter the cost. Because if that's lost, that is a massive loss for the British. The old siege of Malta, yeah, not that one. Not quite as siegey, but still. So it began at I've been terrible with names today. The Rock, what's it called? Not Dwayne The Rock Johnson. It starts with a G. It's because I've been talking for 3 hours. My brain has become fried. Someone remind me. What's south of Spain? What's the island? What's the little rock called? Oh dear me. Yeah, we're definitely stopping off this story. No, don't you dare say Dwayne. I'm so stupid. It literally still exists. I could just whip up a fucking map. I'm checking the goddamn map. Where are you? Go on then. What are you called? Gibraltar! Fuck me. Alright, so yeah. I had Gallipoli in my head. Not that I actually thought it was that, but that's like what kept coming to mind. Like, Gallipoli? No, not Gallipoli. Yeah. Gibraltar! That's the one. Alright, it's not an island, but it is what controls the Strait of Gibraltar, which is where... Oh, hello, you've lost... Where have you lost? Why are you stupid? There you go. Back. I lost my little arm view, my arm chat. But yes, Gibraltar was where it was launched. It consisted of 2 carriers, 2 battleships, a fuck ton of cruisers, and an even more fuck ton of destroyers. They were supporting 5 very large cargo ships. Now, all of these ships had important supplies, but the most important one, the one that's very integral to this story, is the Ohio. The USS Ohio. This ship was commandeered from the American Merchant Navy. It was filled to the brim with oil. And oil was the most important thing that was needed in Malta right this moment. Hey Kuro, hey Sweetie Pie. So, the convoy sets off and almost immediately everything starts to go wrong. They are immediately spotted by German scout planes, and as soon as they get in range of, well, Italy, they start getting bombarded by dive bombers and torpedo planes. The destroyers that are meant to be keeping out, watching for incoming dive bombers, are both completely overwhelmed and also just completely, completely overwhelmed. Almost immediately, a major carrier is hit by dive bombers and sunk. A carrier loss is significant. I believe also they lost a battleship as well, multiple destroyers. This entire journey, all the way from Gibraltar to Malta, they are constantly, near day in, day out, attacked by dive bombers. And indeed, they start to lose ships 2 of the merchant ships lost almost immediately. Multiple destroyers, multiple cruisers. The other aircraft carrier is now is heavily damaged and forced to withdraw. The other battleship, I believe, is heavily damaged but chooses to continue. The major loss that happens, the big ship that needs to be protected no matter what, the USS Ohio, or I think it was the merchant name, not USS, but whatever. The Ohio, the tanker, is very badly damaged. Its rudder is shot. It is basically dead in the water. And what has to happen is, even though this ship is vital, there are still other ships there. So what happens is the convoy leaves it behind, and as is necessary. Eventually, the rest of the convoy arrives in Malta. Some supplies are there, but the oil, the very vital oil from the USS Ohio, it's not USS, I keep forgetting, but the Ohio is not there, obviously. Initially, the fleet are like, oh well, it's lost. But what they don't know, and very luckily that this happened, a small contingent of destroyers actually go out to search for the Ohio. Although they assume that it is likely sunk, luckily for the Ohio and the sailors aboard, they have managed to stabilize the ship. It is no longer sinking and is still alive. A small contingent of destroyers go out and search for the Ohio, and luckily for people on Malta, and of course the people on the Ohio, is they are actually found by these destroyers, but it is still so heavily damaged that it cannot get repaired. So what has to happen is that the destroyers have to literally tow the Ohio into the dock of Malta, and it is one of my favorite images because you can see it. Let's whip it up on stream very quickly, just so I can show you. If I search Ohio Malta, it's a very famous image that I really like of these little tugboats, and you can see just how close the Ohio was to sinking. I just get a little image, add new source, image, and then let's get this. Did I not download it? Am I stupid? App so. Hee. There you go. There we go. You see that? There you go. There's the ship. Look at how close that was to sinking. Like, fuck me. And it got tugged all the way from Africa. Like that. A boat. Boat. Meow point. Meow point. But yeah. I think it's very cool. And because of that, Malta got its oil, and it was able to hold out for the rest of the war without being lost. There you go. There is... Yeah, it went a really long way just being tugged by some destroyers. It was literally as close as you can get to sinking without actually sinking. Yeah. Meow. I think that is the end of today's history class. I think there was more. I wanted to do a bit of War of the Roses, but I'm doing this for 3 hours now. My brain is starting to fry a little bit of non-stop, like, when teaching classes at high school, you never had to do more than 2 hours, and I've done it for 3, so you're welcome. There's your 3-hour history class, Squishables. I hope you enjoyed it. I had an excellent time. I love yapping about the things that I find really, really quite fun. What a great time. Thank you all. I'm sorry I wasn't the best with chat today, but it was just a meow talks at the camera sort of stream. I was watching chat, but yeah. No, it's so cool. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it too. Maybe we'll do another history stream in the future, because I think this went quite well. Don't you? I quite enjoyed it. I liked it. I'm glad you liked it. Hi Numo. Hi Bits. Need to show up next time. If you want, there will of course be a VOD. So if you're curious about any of the topics we spoke about today, the Norman invasion, Vikings, prelude to World War I, World War II, some World War II naval battles, some other tangents that we went on a few times, like the Lobster War. It's all there. So I hope you really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And thank you all. It was a nice change of pace to do a bit of a themed yapping stream. It's lovely to talk to you sometimes. Sometimes it's nice to have something to focus on and actually speak about. And I had a brilliant, brilliant time. Hope you like the outfit, by the way. I love the outfit. I might wear this more often, to be honest, because it's really cute. And I love the glasses. Oh, well. Amazing stream. Thank you, Will. Thank you, everyone. I was surprised how active chat was, to be honest. You were very engaged, which I really, really appreciate. And come here. I'm gonna get you. All right, you ready? You ready? You ready? This is my thank you. Mwah. There you go. I didn't even use the chair very often. I should have done that when I'm asking you a question. Point at you. But still, thank you, everyone. Yeah, that was really fun. I think that was quite a unique stream too. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do a history stream before. But there you go. Peak stream. I love history. It's good. I'm glad you really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed having you lot here. Mwah, 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 mwah. Thank you for the company too, and thank you for listening. What a great stream. What a great time. Thank you to everyone who followed. We got quite a few follows this stream, which I really, really appreciate. Thank you for the raid, Numo. Thank you for the bits, Fruitless. Thank you, Subtle for the resub. Happy for the 5 gift subs. It's all really, really lovely. Jump scare. Oh, scary. Who should we raid? Who should we raid to today? Who is currently live that we can give some love to? You know, Hildren's just gone live. I stream a lot of Warframe, by the way, those who aren't really familiar with me. A lot of Warframe, a lot of VRchat, a lot of other games. I'm a variety streamer, I do all sorts. By the way, if you're interested in a TTRPG stream, you can always subscribe, get us close to that. Should be fun. Nice little treat for my chat, just like this one. This was a sub goal before. So thank you to everyone who subs to make this possible. It's very nice. Very fun. Yeah, thank you, Spearmint. Thank you very, very much. Very kind of you. I'm glad you enjoyed the stream. Let us... Shall we raid Hildren? I think Hildren. I don't think I've ever raided Hildren. Or if I have, it's only been once. And, I need to get in his good books. I need him to judge me less for being a hoe. So let's go. Helpful Hildren. Really sweet guy. Very nice. Very entertaining. Yeah, let's give him an good old raid. Give him some love. But thank you, everyone. Brilliant stream. If you have any feedback, if you ever want to see this again, a history stream, which I imagine a lot of you will, because you seem to really enjoy it. If you have any feedback for me, join my Discord, put it in stream suggestions, or just stream discussion. Tell me what you liked, tell me what you want to see more of, etc, etc, etc. And thank you very much for your company. We do a VRchat stream at least once a week, sometimes twice a week if I'm feeling generous. Do a lot of Warframe, we're doing some Helldivers very soon because of the new update. Do all sorts, whatever I feel like doing. So if you enjoyed this, drop a follow, come hang out. It's been very lovely to have your company today. And yes, I will drink some water. I'm quite thirsty. Helldivers, yippee! Yippee indeed, my darlings. But yeah, we'll see you all around, and thank you very, very much. There's lots more things to talk about in history, so I could absolutely see us doing this again at some point. I'll probably do a bit more research next time, because this was mostly just me talking off the top of my head. But I make sure that I don't say things that I'm not pretty certain are true. Might make some mistakes, but I try to be as honest and accurate as I can be. Anyway, bye stinkies, bye lovelies. Screw you, dragon. Regi. Have a lovely day. Go give Hildren some love. Bye.